Chapter 285. Supremacy is ascending to the Permethar realm and can still bring little Ting along. Cheelin blinked his eyes, dumbfounded. He can still bring someone along? That works. Didn't you hear what little Ting said? Little Ting said to go back. Go back. Don't you understand? Aowan looked at Cheelin and shook his head. From what she said, supremacy and little Ting should have come from the Permethar realm and are only going back now. They can still come back after transcending? Cheelin nodded thoughtfully. Brother Monkey, the Copper Hall of Flower Fruit Mountain must be protected well. I'm afraid that if supremacy wants to come back in the future, he will still need to use the Copper Hall. Monkey nodded and released the somersault cloud. Let's go. Supremacy's orders must not be neglected. From now on, the Ape Tribe of Flower Fruit Mountain, East Sea Dragon Tribe, and Cheelin Tribe must protect the Copper Hall for generations to come. Aowan and Cheelin nodded heavily. The somersault cloud soared into the sky and turned a new page in the history of this world. Of course, all of this had nothing to do with Liu. A ray of light flashed, and Liu and little Ting appeared in the immortal abode of the shop space. Here, brother, we are back. Seeing the familiar palace, little Ting turned her head to look around and giggled. Let's go home. Yes, we are home. Liu patted little Ting's head and looked around the shop space. He smiled and nodded. The harvest this time is not small. The shop space can be renovated again. If he wanted to renovate the shop space, it would not be suitable for little Ting to stay inside. Liu smiled at little Ting and said, Ting, you haven't seen Brother Qinglian in a long time. Go and see him. I will go and find Brother Qinglian first. Little Ting giggled and stepped out of the shop space with a flash of light and returned to Kangwu Mountain's mountain-gazing river. System expand the shop space. Every time a shop was built, the shop space would be able to draw spatial energy from the target world to expand the shop space. Although the area of the 9 floating islands did not increase, the space expansion was still very important. Boom! There was a violent tremor in the void as the chaotic qi that permeated the boundary of the Shang city erupted violently, sweeping out in all directions like a raging tide. The expansion of space this time has increased by so much. After the chaotic energy settled down, Liu discovered that the entire shopping mall had expanded by at least 10 times. The spatial energy of the previous world was extremely abundant. There were countless medium-class realms in the heavens beyond. Needless to say, there were small kiliocosms everywhere. Therefore, it's very normal for the shopping mall to absorb more spatial energy. Liu nodded. The expansion of the space is complete. Next is the construction of the space. With a wave of his hand, Liu took out a black crystal and examined it. He smiled and said, You can release the 4,000 divine beasts sealed by the Marquis of Champion. With a flick of his finger, the crystal formed by the Dark Mandara barrier instantly shattered. Croak, croak, chirp, chirp. Golden crow, jade rabbit, fire phoenix, ice phoenix, 4,000 mythological beasts appeared in the shop space. For a moment, crows cried, phoenixes danced, and rabbits jumped. The entire shopping mall space suddenly became lively. System: incorporate golden crow, jade rabbit, fire phoenix, and ice phoenix into the spiritual beast system of the shopping mall space. With Liu's order, an invisible wave swept through, and the 4,000 mythological beasts were immediately incorporated into the shopping mall space system, becoming a part of the shopping mall space. Their life and death were in Liu's hands. My name is Yu. Come and meet me quickly. Liu released his aura. As a young god spiritual master and the master of the shopping mall space, the 4,000 mythological beasts immediately knelt in front of Liu in fear. Greetings to His Majesty Emperor Yu. The 4,000 mythological beasts shouted and kowtowed to Liu. The golden crow, jade rabbit, fire phoenix, and ice phoenix were all ancient mythological beasts. In essence, they were not inferior to the Cheelin. They were much stronger than the group of foxes in the West Mountain Valley. With some training, they would be a very good group of people in the future. This is my cave residence. From now on, you will settle down here. We obey Emperor Yu's decree. The 4,000 mythological beasts naturally did not dare to complain. Since you have become my disciples, I will not treat you unfairly. Liu waved his sleeves, and 4,000 light spots whizzed out and entered the souls of the 4,000 mythological beasts. To become a group of people, of course, he had to increase their strength. What was given to the Fire Phoenix and Ice Phoenix was the true Nirvana technique that Liu had deduced. The Jade Rabbit and the Golden Crow had also deduced the Moonlight Scripture and the Great Sun Golden Crow technique, respectively. This is the technique of acupoints, shattering the vacuum and directly pointing to the young god. Seeing the technique that appeared in their minds, the 4,000 mythological beasts were shocked. His Majesty Emperor Yu's divine ability that could seize the creation of heaven and earth was really unfathomable. Emperor Yu is merciful. We thank Emperor Yu for his kindness. After receiving Emperor Yu's teachings, the 4,000 mythological beasts were immediately convinced and kowtowed with tears of gratitude. There are 9 floating islands in the cave. Other than the main island, you can choose your own place to settle down. Liu waved his hand and dismissed the mythological beasts, then turned and walked into the Immortal Mansion's garden. This time, there are still many gains. Liu glanced at the resource warehouse and smiled. He chose 2 small hills and planted the green dragon tree and the dancing tree. The 2 giant trees towered into the clouds, their luxuriant branches and leaves covering the sky. In the huge Immortal Mansion's garden, these 2 giant trees took up a large space. Not bad. The Immortal Mansion's garden is finally looking decent. Looking up at the Immortal Mansion's garden, he saw the 9 bins lotus pond. The lotus flowers reflected the sun, and the lotus leaves reached the sky. The Bodhi tree exuded a mysterious aura, and the Chilan immortal herb exuded a vigorous vitality. At this moment, after planting the green dragon tree and the dancing tree, the majestic Ewood azure chi and the dancing tree bloomed into Permitha flowers. The entire Immortal Mansion's garden was suddenly filled with endless mysteries and scenes. What's left is to plant the dragon tooth spiritual rice. Liu turned and walked out of the Immortal Mansion's garden and arrived at the Pill Hall. Outside the Pill Hall, there was a field of herbs. The field of herbs has always been empty. Now, I can finally plant some things. Liu smiled and waved his hand. Grains of dragon tooth spiritual rice that were 3 feet and 3 inches long, sparkling and translucent like jade, with rich spiritual chi and a tempting fragrance, fell into the field of herbs. System: plant the dragon tooth spiritual rice. In the field of herbs, the black and yellow chi surged, and a majestic vitality bloomed. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Many sparkling and translucent jade-like trees grew rapidly from the field of herbs. In an instant, the huge field of herbs turned into a forest of sparkling and translucent jade-like trees. Not bad, not bad. After planting the dragon tooth spiritual rice, there will be an endless supply of dragon tooth spiritual rice. From now on, I can eat heaven and earth treasures like rice. Chapter 286. I've planted those that should be planted. I've reared those that should be reared. Liu looked at the resource warehouse. The rest of the items are all magical artifacts and tools. Let's put them away first to enrich our collection. He walked into the Pill Hall and took out the water dragon cauldron that he collected from the Jambu Great Formation. He placed it in the pill room. I don't know when I'll be able to use these cauldrons. There was a row of huge cauldrons in the Pill Hall. Now, there was another one. These cauldrons were basically useless. They were just decorations. Turning his head to look at the green underground fire green lotus in the fire pool and the purplish-black fire dragon that was transformed by the Nihility devouring flame, Liu smiled and nodded. Nihility devouring flame? The fire dragon mirror is quite compatible with you. I'll give it to you then. The 9 magical artifacts in the Jambu Great Formation had been used up. Liu planned to deal with the rest. He waved his hand and took out the fire dragon mirror. He then placed it into the fire pool. Roar! The purplish-black fire dragon cheered and dived into the fire dragon mirror. Rumble. Flames burst out, and raging flames raged. The small fire dragon's body suddenly expanded and turned into a huge fire dragon that was 10 zhang long. It roared and swam in the huge pill hall. Not bad, not bad. After the nihility-devouring flame merged with the fire dragon mirror, it has grown a lot. Liu nodded. With this, it can be put to good use. The nihility-devouring flame, which was already an emperor flame, finally looked better after merging with the fire dragon mirror. Go back and wait. Waving his hand at the nihility-devouring flame, Liu turned and walked out of the pill hall. He came to the lightning pool in front of the blacksmith pavilion. I'll just throw the thunder dragon gourd inside. After throwing the thunder dragon gourd into the lightning pool, Liu was too lazy to bother about it. I'll leave the golden dragon dagger and turtle dragon egg here first. Other than these, Liu had a lot of divine artifacts and supreme treasures. He still had to deal with them. I'm just about to refine those divine artifacts. I can go to the artifact forging pavilion to take a look. Liu hadn't taken a look at the many functional buildings in the shopping mall yet. Since he planned to refine weapons, he might as well go to the refining pavilion. He walked up to the crafting pavilion and pushed the door open. The entire hall was empty. There was nothing there. Well, I'm not surprised at all. Since the crafting pavilion had never been used, there must be nothing left. The furnace was empty, the fire pool was empty, and the quenching pool next to it was also empty. Other than that, even the material storage, exhibition room, and library were empty. Looks like I have to continue working hard. Liu smiled and shook his head. After plundering for so long, he couldn't even fill up the house. It was still far from enough. Let's add something to the crafting pavilion first. Liu glanced at the weapon refining pavilion and gave an order to the system. System, record all the methods of weapon refining in the weapon refining pavilion's library. Over the past few worlds, Liu had collected many methods of weapon refining. In a moment, the library's bookshelves were filled with countless ancient books. The exhibition room can be used. Liu waved his hand and stored all the unused magic treasures, divine artifacts, and holy weapons in the resource storage into the exhibition room of the weapon refining pavilion. The materials can also be stored in the material storage. With another wave of his hand, all the miscellaneous materials, including the Taichu Motetsu, were stored in the material storage of the weapon refining pavilion. Now it's time to refine the magic treasures. Liu touched his chin and smiled. The first thing to solve is the problem of the vehicle. I've gained a lot this time. I have a car and a boat. It's time to get a decent vehicle. Liu waved his hand, and a few items flew out of the exhibition room and floated in front of Liu. The sky-patrolling sun and moon chariot of the Yin Emperor and the Shang Emperor, the boat of destiny of the Qian Emperor, the dark gold flying boat that Liu had made himself, and the immortal monument. System, modify the sky-patrolling sun and moon chariot, the boat of destiny, and the dark gold flying boat into a structure of 480 million talismans. Under Liu's order, the five-colored light swept across and completed the modification in an instant. With a wave of his hand, the two chariots, the boat of destiny, the dark gold flying boat, and the immortal monument, exploded at the same time and turned into balls of light. Merge! Liu clasped his hands together, and a vast amount of dermic powers surged and merged the 5 balls of light in front of him into one. Boom! With a loud explosion, an endless amount of light bloomed. The 5 balls of light intertwined, penetrated, and fused into one. Done! Liu shouted, and a spiritual light shot out from his hand. The 5 balls of light merged into one. As the light dissipated, a palm-sized ancient bronze chariot landed in Liu's hand. With a flick of his finger, the small bronze chariot turned into an exquisite little boat. In the next moment, it turned into a lotus platform. Merging 5 divine artifacts and combining them with talismans, it has the ability to transform into anything. Not bad. Not bad. In the future, I'll get a few dragons to pull the chariot. I'll call it the 9 Dragons Rui Chariot. Liu nodded and kept the small bronze chariot. There were 1,000 dragons in the resource vault. However, they were all dragon corpses that had lost their souls and were not of use for now. In the future, when he found a few flood dragons and turned them into dragons, he could use them to pull the chariot. Of course, the dragons pulling the chariot were just for show. Without dragons, the chariot could still fly in the sky. After refining the chariot, all that was left was to refine the cave abode. With another wave of his hand, the heavenly tomb, the kingdom of eternity, the immortal monument, and the flaming tortoise shell floated in front of Liu. Merge! Using the same method, Liu merged these magical treasures and divine artifacts into one, turning them into a palm-sized model of a small pavilion. With the space of the heavenly tomb and the kingdom of eternity, as well as the protection of the flaming tortoise grave formation, it can transform into all kinds of buildings. As a portable cave abode, it will be very convenient. With a wave of his hand, the small pavilion fell into his hand. Liu looked at it and nodded in satisfaction. Since the kingdom of eternity is the main material, let's call it the eternal immortal abode. After keeping the small pavilion, Liu turned to look at the weapon refining pavilion's display room. He found that there was no need to modify the remaining items. There are 2 immortal monuments left. I won't be using them for now. I'll leave them for now. Liu smiled and turned to leave the weapon refining pavilion. Let's try the chariot. With a wave of his hand, the palm-sized ancient bronze chariot floated in midair. With a flash of light, the small bronze chariot turned into an exquisite and majestic chariot. It was formed by the fusion of 5 treasures. Among them, the boat of destiny and the immortal monuments were pinnacle divine artifacts. Once the chariot appeared, its aura was vast and boundless. Not bad. Liu's figure flashed, and he landed in the chariot. Opening the door, there was a vast and boundless small world inside. There were all kinds of gorgeous palaces, exquisite pavilions, green mountains and clear waters and cool winds. This kind of chariot is more comfortable. If it was just a small chariot, it would be better to walk. Liu chuckled. With a thought, the chariot shot out a ray of light and whistled through the air. In an instant, it made a round in the merchant city. That's pretty fast. Liu nodded. With a wave of his hand, the chariot changed instantly. An exquisite dragon-shaped ship appeared in midair. Not bad. It will be more convenient to travel in the future. Liu flashed out of the chariot and waved his hand to keep the dragon-shaped ship. The matters in the merchant city have been settled. Liu smiled. 4 years have passed in the other world, and 4 days have passed in the main world. I wonder if the owners of the heavenly projecting pearl have any harvest? Chapter 287. System. Connect to the heavenly divination orb and receive information. Following Liu's command, the system instantly connected to the 26 heavenly divination orbs. All sorts of information flowed and was recorded into the resource vault. In just 4 short days, I've actually gained quite a bit. Liu nodded in satisfaction when he saw the various secret manuals, astronomy, geography, local customs, and so on in the resource vault. The information I want is the astronomy, geography, legends, and biographies of this world. These things are all miscellaneous in the various sects and clans, so they definitely won't be kept a secret. It's not strange that I've gained so much in just a few days. Liu nodded and instructed the system. System, send me a copy of the astronomy, geography, legends, and biographies. His spirit had reached the Yang God level, and he had fused the calculation ability of the Future Master, the calculation ability of the Book of Changes, and the observation ability of the mystery of forwarding. Liu could process this information very easily. Middle-earth outer civilization foresees sacred spirits of the 5 directions, chaotic void. All sorts of information flowed through his mind, and his 129,600 thoughts exploded with brilliant light. In just a moment, all the information had been sorted out and summarized. There's still no useful information. After sorting out the information, Liu realized that the astronomy, geography, legends, and biographies that he had gained were not much different from the collection of the Kangwu Academy. Liu still had no clue about the secrets of this world and the truth of this world. Fortunately, it was not completely without any gains. Heaven-splitting sword sect? 20,000 years ago, they were a peerless sect that dominated the world and flourished for a time. They killed too much and harmed the harmony of the world. They were punished by the heavens overnight, and the heavenly lightning flattened the heaven-splitting mountain range. The heaven-splitting sword sect was exterminated. Liu stroked his chin and nodded. Heavenly punishment? Haha, this is interesting. Traversing through several worlds, he even used the world as his Tao to evolve it and become a Yang god. Liu naturally knew that the heavenly Tao was fair and merciless. There was no such thing as killing too much. The heavenly Tao was actually the rules of the world, and it did not have consciousness. Even if there was a lightning tribulation, it was only the law of the operation of the power of the world. Why would it care if you killed too many people? The heavenly punishment of annihilation. If it's not man-made, then the so-called heavenly Tao of this world is very interesting. A heavenly Tao that could actively impose heavenly punishment already had self-awareness. Was this still the heavenly Tao? Heaven-splitting sword sect, more than 20,000 years ago, Liu frowned slightly. Among the three religions of Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism, the oldest sect only has a history of about 10,000 years. So, the information I'm looking for has already been lost in history. The harvest of the heavenly projectile plan was far lower than expected. Liu shook his head and took a step out of the merchant store, arriving at the gazing river peak of Kangwu Mountain. Liu raised his head and glanced in the direction of the turbulent void. A few thoughts flashed through his mind. The turbulent void is the most special place in this world where one cannot sense the heavenly Tao. I'm afraid there are still some secrets hidden here. With a flash, Liu took a step forward and rushed into the void. The turbulent void, what exactly is hidden here? Looking at the chaotic and disorderly scene before him, Liu smiled. Then let's go take a look. Liu took a step forward and stepped into the chaotic and disorderly void. The endless turbulence in the void stirred wildly. There was only chaos in front of him. There was no front or back, no top or bottom. It was as if all the rules and laws of the world had been completely broken here. It's indeed a land of disorder. Liu smiled and shook his head when he saw this scene. A place where the rules and laws of the world were chaotic and had no order or laws at all probably only existed in the chaos before the world was created. Liu's strength came from his own body and had nothing to do with the rules of the world. Therefore, this chaotic and disorderly place did not affect him at all. The birth of chaos, the evolution of yin and yang. Liu shouted softly. A divine light rushed out from the top of his head. Endless visions evolved in the divine light. The birth of chaos, the opening of the world, the evolution of yin and yang, and the birth of all living things. Once this phenomenon appeared, it directly manifested a pure land in the endless chaos. This is much more pleasing to the eye. Liu smiled and nodded. He rode the divine light and continued to advance into the depths of the turbulent void. Boom! Boom! As Liu continued to go deeper, various turbulent storms in the void continued to surge. A huge force tore the entire void. The violent vibrations caused the divine light that Liu manifested to tremble. Turbulent storms? Where did this force come from? Liu looked at the endless turbulent storms around him and could not help but frown. He was even more curious about the turbulent void. Since I'm here, I naturally have to find out. The divine light that rushed out from the top of his head became even more brilliant. Liu continued to fly into the depths of the turbulent void. Boom! As he was flying, a huge and boundless turbulent storm suddenly erupted in front of him. The incomparably vast force was like the collapse of heaven and earth. After this storm rushed out, everything in the void was torn apart. The chaotic and disorderly chi of heaven and earth was annihilated, and there was a burst of earth-shattering sounds. The vast and boundless force rushed over like a wave. Liu, who was flying all the way, was completely caught off guard. Boom! The turbulent void slammed over fiercely. The divine light that Liu manifested exploded with a boom. The huge force shook Liu and sent him flying thousands of miles away. Damn it! Liu quickly mobilized the chaotic qi, yin and yang qi, and black and yellow qi in the space of the store. The three qi flows intertwined and circulated. Only then did he stabilize himself in this sudden void storm. This force is so powerful. With Liu's current strength, it was simply unbelievable that he was sent flying by a turbulent storm. The martial arts cultivation of the vacuum-shattering realm, the spirit of the sun spirit realm, and then the infinite scripture to become a quasi-emperor. How terrifying was Liu's strength? Now he was sent flying by a storm? What kind of power is this? Liu raised his eyes to look at the turbulent void in front of him. He was even more curious. I'd like to see how powerful the turbulent void is. Against the light curtain formed by the three qi flows, Liu broke through the air and directly crashed into the turbulent storm. Boom! With a loud explosion, Liu directly crushed this turbulent storm. The chaotic qi, yin and yang qi, and black and yellow qi that originated from the bronze immortal palace were immortal-level forces. Naturally, they were incomparably powerful. With the support of this force, Liu rampaged, crushing countless turbulent void currents, and rushed into the depths of the void. The deeper he went, the more powerful the turbulent storm became. Rumble! Kacha! After Liu rushed out of the endless storm, a dazzling sea of light appeared in front of him. In the endless roar, a force that could destroy heaven and earth, crush everything, and destroy time and space crazily exploded. The void was shattered. Yuan Qi was annihilated. Time and space were destroyed. All the rules between heaven and earth, all the order, were all shattered. This was the source of the turbulent void. There was only endless destruction here. What is this thing? Liu's face was a little pale. This was because under this force, the three qi of the green bronze immortal palace was almost unable to withstand. The three qi of the green bronze immortal palace. This was the power of the immortal realm. How terrifying was the power of the immortal realm? A great emperor could shatter a galaxy with one blow. The power of the immortal realm could easily destroy a universe. Now, the power that erupted in this sea of light, even the three qi of the green bronze immortal palace could not withstand it. Chapter 288. The truth lies in this sea of light. Liu is certain that the greatest secret of this world was hidden in this sea of light. Since I'm already here, how can I retreat? Liu took a deep breath and waved his hand to release the invisible immortal fire from the immortal residence of the merchant city. The invisible immortal fire was the source of all flames in the fire domain. It was also an immortal level power. The formless flames flowed, adding another layer of formless flames around the bronze immortal palace's three qis. When this power was released, it even burned through the void. The trembling bronze immortal palace's three qi immediately stabilized. Green Lotus Emperor Weapon. Liu waved his hand and took out the Green Lotus Emperor Weapon from the garden of the immortal residence. A huge green lotus appeared under Liu's feet. Brilliant splendor circulated and a powerful aura intertwined. Invisible immortal fire, bronze immortal palace's three qi, and Green Lotus Emperor Weapon. Under the support of these three powers, Liu exploded with an incomparably powerful power. Splendor circulated and divine splendor bloomed. An overbearing divine power that could suppress eternity soared into the sky. At this moment, Liu had revealed all his trump cards and exploded with his strongest power. Knock him over! Liu roared, and his powerful dermic power penetrated the three treasures. He was like an angry dragon that had broken free from its shackles and crashed into the sea of light. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion rang out. Endless destructive power erupted violently. Everything in the turbulent void once again ushered in a great annihilation similar to the annihilation of the universe. Endless destruction swept across. The great Tao of heaven and earth, the order of the world, and the rules of space-time were all reduced to nothingness. Everything returned to chaos. Damn it, it's so powerful. The immortal fire, immortal chi, and emperor weapon. These three peerless powers, in addition to Li Yu's own quasi-emperor strength, were all struck by this violent explosion of destructive power. Crack! Boom! Crack! The boundless destructive power surged like a raging tide, bombarding the light screen in front of Li Yu endlessly, causing a series of violent explosions. The barrier constructed by the immortal flame, immortal chi, and monarch weapon shuddered vigorously. The violent impact caused Li Yu's bones to emit explosive sounds. Cracks appeared all over his body, as if he would be crushed at any moment. Holy Spring. Li Yu quickly took out the holy spring that he had obtained from the forbidden land of remote antiquity and took a big gulp. The immense life force of life and death merged into Li Yu's body. With the help of his blood rebirth cultivation, the injuries on his body were instantly healed. Forward. Keep going. Li Yu let out a roar as he controlled the three-stacked rare treasure to collide with the destructive light. Rumble. The tremors on the three light curtains became even more violent. In the face of this destructive power, Li Yu's quasi-emperor cultivation had become the weakest link. Under the violent impact, Li Yu's body exploded with streaks of blood. His muscles and bones were broken, and his flesh and blood were eroded. Secret skill of swordsman. Blood rebirth. Immortal Qilin herb. At this time, the life force of the Holy Spring was no longer enough. Li Yu used the swordsman's secret skill of the 9 esotericas to repair the body. Then he mobilized the immense life force of the immortal Qilin herb in the Immortal Mansion's garden and used his blood rebirth constitution to repair the damage to his body. Destruction, rebirth, destruction, and rebirth again. Along the way, Li Yu's body continued to strengthen in this endless destruction and rebirth. My body that has shattered the vacuum can still be strengthened? Then let's continue. Li Yu took a deep breath and drove the 3 light curtains to continue charging into the depths of the sea of light. In the endless destruction and rebirth, streaks of purple gold divine light bloomed in his body. The 480 million talismans that represented the mark of life origin suddenly ignited with a monstrous purple gold flame. This is the innate divine body Tao fetus? The divine body is also called the indestructible golden body. The innate divine body Tao fetus has the essence of the divine body, so it also has the power of the indestructible golden body? Li Yu instantly understood the cause of this phenomenon. He laughed and nodded. The divine body has unlimited potential. The innate divine body Tao fetus that has all the essence of the divine body has unlimited potential. Divine body secret skill. At this moment, Li Yu saw the hope of his cultivation improving further. He hurriedly used the divine body secret skill. Qi, blood, and divine light ran through all the secret realms around him and commanded the 480 million talismans in his body. The great success divine body was equivalent to a great emperor. Li Yu was already a quasi-emperor. Because he was in a different world, he could not resonate with the heaven and earth. He could not obtain the sacred heart mark and become a great emperor. Now, the path of the great success divine body had shown him the possibility of opening up another path. No one can become a great emperor without the sacred heart mark. Not even a vicious person. Not even the sales. I also want to try. Boom. The 3 layers of light fiercely smashed into the depths of the sea of light, and an endless destructive power erupted. Under this intense impact, under this destructive power, even the light screen formed by the immortal fire, immortal energy, and emperor weapons trembled violently. Even with the barrier of light, the endless destructive power still erupted with an incomparably tyrannical impact. Crack! Li Yu's entire body emitted a series of cracking sounds. His tendons, bones, blood, and flesh were all shattered, and he was almost unrecognizable. Innate divine body, indestructible golden body. Liu roared, and endless purple-gold flames violently erupted. This time, Liu did not use the secret art of swordsman, rebirth from a drop of blood, or the vast vitality of the immortal Kylan elixir. Instead, he fully activated the peerless potential of his innate, saintly being and was reborn in the midst of destruction. Previous chapter, next chapter, boom. A purple-gold flame that pierced through the heavens, and the earth rushed up. At this moment, the vast divine splendor, the vast life force, and the boundless power were all revealed without a doubt. Along the way, his body was constantly destroyed and reborn. He did not use any secret techniques, nor did he use any spiritual medicines. He completely used his body to resist. In this endless cycle of destruction and rebirth, the innate potential of the innate divine body was completely released. The edge of a treasured sword comes from sharpening, and the fragrance of plum blossoms comes from the bitter cold. As expected, only in this kind of life and death tempering, only in this kind of destruction and rebirth, can one dig out all of one's potential. Although the pain of his body being destroyed and reborn caused the corner of Liu's mouth to twitch, his heart was filled with joy. No wonder the monkey's 9 revolutions heavenly art is so masochistic. It turns out that the potential of the body can only be stimulated through this kind of tempering. Time and time again, he was reborn, and a brilliant divine radiance bloomed. Liu's true body emitted a sparkling light like a peerless treasure, as if it was a peerless divine artifact that had been tempered thousands of times. So, the body is not a boat that can cross the sea. The body is one's greatest treasure. Between each destruction and rebirth, a wave of enlightenment flowed through his mind. Liu chuckled, and his body shook. The 480 million talismans around him were instantly shattered, and his body turned into a purplish-gold blood mist. Raging flames cast golden body, returned to the origin. Endless purplish-gold flames suddenly surged. In the raging flames that filled the sky, the sound of a deafening heartbeat could be heard. Bam! 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 Raging flames cast golden body. In the purplish-gold flames, a body was constantly being reconstructed in the void. The truth of the great Tao and endless divine power were all in this body. System, decompose the Marquis champion, extract all of his life force, and inject it into my body to help my innate divine body reach phenomenal success. The Marquis champion had the vast life force of an immortal king. Once it was injected, it was like adding oil to a raging fire. Boom! The purplish-gold flames surged into the sky like a volcanic eruption, and the raging flames surged into the sky. Endless life force erupted violently, and a figure with a vast and mighty aura stood tall in the flames. Everything in the world and all living beings in the world bowed down to him. Clang! Beams of divine light bloomed, and waves of heavenly music lingered in the air. Endless visions circulated between heaven and earth, and the great Tao resonated. Even in this extremely chaotic void, even under the shroud of destructive power that filled the sky, the endless divine light propped up a huge pure land. The void shook, and heaven and earth bowed down. A great existence that was above all living beings was born. The divine light is vast and mighty, and it has intimidated the heavens for 100,000 years. I am invincible in the world, and my fate is in my own hands. A loud voice resounded through the clouds. The purplish-gold flames faded, and Liu's figure reappeared. After his aura was withdrawn, there was no earth-shattering phenomenon, nor was there an incomparably vast power. It was as if he was just an ordinary boy next door. However, Liu knew that he was already very different. The vacuum-crushing martial arts cultivation had completely integrated into the innate divine body, Tao embryo. It was no longer the martial arts cultivation, but the instincts of the body. He still had the fist intent essence, the ability to be reborn from a drop of blood, the ability to transform, and a lifespan of 129,600 years. However, all of these had become the natural instincts of the innate divine body, Tao embryo. The mighty power that could shatter galaxies and destroy worlds surged in his body. The mighty divine power and majestic power shook the heavens and the earth. Is this the phenomenal divine body? Is this the power of the great emperor? Li took a deep breath and slowly raised his fist. Immortal fire, immortal chi, green lotus emperor weapon, phenomenal divine body, immortal sun spirit. Thousands of mighty powers gathered in one body. In all the heavens and realms, only I am supreme. Liu roared and threw a heavy punch at the endless sea of destructive light in front of him. Boom! Heaven and earth collapsed. Space-time shattered. The endless sea of destructive light was penetrated by this blow. The scene in the center of the sea of destructive light appeared in front of Liu. Hiss! What is that? Chapter 289. It was a ray of light, a ray of pure light, a ray of light that could destroy everything. Even though he was still very far away, Liu could still feel the destructive will contained within that beam of light. The will to annihilate everything, to annihilate everything. He was very familiar with this aura. Sword light? This is a ray of sword light? Liu sucked in a breath of cold air as he was shocked by the truth. It was obvious that the entire destructive light ocean was the destructive power of this ray of sword light. The entire turbulent void was created by this ray of sword light. The great Tao of heaven and earth, the rules of the world were all destroyed by this sword light. What kind of terrifying power is this? Even though Liu had achieved great success in his innate saint body and possessed the power of a great emperor, he was still unable to do anything. Even with the immortal fire, immortal chi, and green lotus emperor weapon, he did not dare to go any further. Just the aura that it emitted had turned into a vast and boundless destructive light ocean. Breaking through the destructive light ocean had forced Liu to use all his strength and all his trump cards. If he dared to go near the sword light, even a great emperor would not be able to withstand it. He would definitely die without leaving a trace. I'm still not strong enough. Liu took a deep breath and shook his head helplessly. Although he had achieved great success in his innate saint body, he still could not fully utilize the power of the immortal fire and immortal chi. Only when he was an immortal could he fully utilize the immortal fire and immortal chi and dare to look at the ray of sword light. There's nothing left to see. Even though he had discovered part of the truth of the world, he could not explore everything because he was not strong enough. Liu shook his head and decided to return to Kanwu Mountain before making any plans. Clang! Just as he was about to turn around, Liu suddenly heard the sword light in the sea of destructive light suddenly burst out with a shrill sword cry, and a power that could destroy everything suddenly erupted. Liu was shocked and cold sweat broke out on his back. If he was hit by this ray of sword light now, even if Liu had the immortal fire and immortal chi to protect him, he would not be able to fully utilize their power. Even if he had achieved great success in his innate saint body, he would be lucky to have half a breath left. Damn it! Liu's complexion was ashen as he hurriedly activated the 3 layers of light curtains, bursting out with all his strength to block in front of him. However, this sword was not aimed at him. Under Liu's astonished gaze, the sword light that could cut through everything viciously slashed toward the end of the void. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion rang out. Boundless energy of destruction erupted violently. Space shattered, space was obliterated, and everything returned to chaos. Rumble! Turbulent storms erupted violently, sweeping out like a raging tide, impacting the entire turbulent void. So that's how the turbulent storm that sent me flying came about. Seeing this scene, Liu recalled the turbulent storm that had sent him flying for thousands of miles, and he understood a little. Liu raised his head to look in the direction where the sword light came from and frowned. What on earth is there? Why is the sword light slashing towards the void? Liu was very confused, but he did not dare to go to the end of the void. He did not dare to go near it. If he went there, wouldn't he be a target for the sword light? Even if he wanted to die, this was not the way to do it. Rumble. At this time, another earth-shattering explosion rang out in the void. At the end of the void, there was a violent explosion. Heaven and earth shook, and the void was destroyed. Streaks of devastating power surged out from the end of the void. They tore through the sky and blasted towards the sword light. This is the thing at the end of the void is starting to fight back. Liu quickly opened his eyes wide and stared at the power that was blasting toward him. He wanted to see what it was. Rumble. The turbulent void shook violently. White light ribbons, like huge soft whips, lashed toward the sword light in the middle of the destructive light sea. Rumble, 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 rumble. The huge white light ribbons lashed on the sword light, causing a series of violent explosions. A huge force that could destroy everything violently erupted in the destructive light sea, setting off a violent earthquake. Under this power, the entire sea of light, of destruction, the entire chaotic void space, once again ushered in a great calamity. Holy **T. Liu opened his mouth wide and could not close it for a long time. No wonder the turbulent void was chaotic. No wonder the turbulent void was chaotic and disorderly. If this fight continued, it would be impossible for it not to be chaotic. Whether it was the sword light or the white light ribbons, they both had destructive power. When the two sides fought, an extremely powerful force erupted. The space-time shattered, the vital chi was annihilated, and the rules of heaven and earth disappeared. Even Liu, who had the strength of a great completion divine body, could only look up to this force. This was definitely the power of the celestial grade, or even beyond the celestial grade. But were those light ribbons? They seemed to have a very familiar aura. What was going on? Liu stared closely at the position where the two sides were fighting. He wanted to see what those white light ribbons were. This was because when the white light ribbons appeared, Liu felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity, but he could not figure out what was going on. Clang! After being bombarded by the white light ribbons, the sword light burst out with a sword cry that shook the heavens and the earth. Endless sword light suddenly rushed up, and a mighty force swept out like a fierce wind. It was indeed like a fierce wind. In this endless sword light, the chaotic and disorderly endless chaos was swept away, and a huge hole was created. At this moment, Liu finally saw the appearance of the white light ribbons. It was an incomparably huge and boundless net. As the sword light swept out, a part of the net was exposed. It seemed to be a huge spider web that covered the sky and the sun. The white light ribbons that bombarded the sword light were the spider silk on the spider web. Broken spider silk. Yes, the spider silk was broken. There was a huge crack in the net that covered the sky, and the sword light was in the crack. Obviously, this crack was cut open by the sword light. This was the origin of the turbulent void. In the turbulent void, it was a crack, a sword mark. Boom! There was another violent explosion that could destroy heaven and earth. An incomparably tyrannical storm rose to the sky and once again swept through the entire turbulent void. In this explosion, an endless amount of airflow erupted, allowing Liu to see what was happening on the net. Hiss! That is, the airflow lifted a corner of the net, and an extremely shocking scene was revealed. Seeing this scene, Liu fiercely sucked in a breath of cold air, the hairs on his body standing on end. On this incomparably huge sky-covering spider web, suddenly, there were actually strung together with figures, like insects that had fallen into the spider web. These figures were strung together from head to toe like beads. The densely packed figures were strung together on the spider web. There were thousands of them, and they were innumerable. These people, this spider web, what is going on? At this moment, Liu's heart was in a state of shock. Chapter 290. Boom! A huge white belt of light broke through the air. The enormous power that could destroy time and space rolled up endless turbulence in the void as it violently struck the sword light. This white belt of light was naturally a strand of spider silk in the net. This strand of spider silk was about 100 miles away from Li Yu. It was the strand of spider silk that was closest to Li Yu. Li Yu could see the scene on the spider silk the clearest. On this strand of spider silk, there was a figure wearing an ancient robe, a high hat, and a wide belt. Judging from the shape of the robe, it should be the style of the scholar's robe from 20,000 years ago. This person's aura was vast, and his strength was extremely tyrannical. However, at this moment, he was strung up by the spider silk like a dead fish. His strength had already been integrated into the spider silk. When his strand of spider silk broke through the air, the figure strung up by the spider silk seemed to have noticed Li Yu's existence and suddenly opened his eyes. A pair of murky eyes were filled with despair and pleading. His shriveled lips moved slightly, and a barely discernible cry for help reached Li Yu's ears. "Save me!" With a wave of the spider's silk, it instantly disappeared into the chaotic void. That desperate figure, that mournful cry for help, was like a dream bubble. It was as if it had never existed. However, Li Yu knew that he could not be mistaken. When one's strength reached his level, everything was within his perception. It was absolutely impossible for him to be mistaken. It was also impossible for him to be mistaken. All of this was real. The net, the spider silk, and the figure strung up by the spider silk. This should be the biggest secret of this world. Let's go. Li Yu glanced at the sword light and the net, and turned to leave without hesitation. Even though he had a great divine body and had the strength of a great emperor, in front of the sword light and the net, he was still too weak. With his current strength, it was not enough to explore the truth of this world. "I will be back." Li Yu took a deep breath and clenched his fists tightly. With a sway of his body, he charged out of the sea of light and out of the turbulent void. Li Yu flew all the way out of the turbulent void in just a moment. After leaving the void turbulence, the ability to teleport was no longer affected. Li Yu took a step forward and returned to Kangwu Mountain's river-gazing peak in an instant. "I want to become an immortal." Within the hall, Li Yu and the Blue Lotus Avatar sat across from each other at table. With a single touch of his divine soul, the exchange of information was completed. Li Yu clenched his fists and looked up at the sky, his eyes solemn. "The person who called me for help on the spider web must be from this world. There are tens of thousands of such people on the spider web." Turning around, Li Yu glanced at the Azure Lotus Avatar and shook his head. "I can only trace the history of this world back to 30,000 years ago, and there are very few official records. If we go any further, it will be completely blank. Sword light, web, people strung on the spider web. This world hides great dangers." At this point, Li Yu grinned. "I don't know how big the web is, and I don't know who the people in the web are. If this web envelopes the entire world." Li Yu flicked his sleeves and stood with his hands behind his back, looking up at the sky. "Then we're all in the web, fish in the web. If we want to break free from this inescapable web, we need at least the power of an immortal." Turning back to look at the Azure Lotus Avatar, Li Yu's face darkened. "I'll leave the matters at home to you. I plan to open the next world immediately. I want to find a way to become an immortal as soon as possible. This time, I must become an immortal when I open the next world. I won't come back until I become an immortal. So, I don't know how long I'll stay in the other world. Give me a reason for going into seclusion." After giving some instructions to the Azure Lotus Avatar, Li Yu stepped out and returned to the mall space. He had just returned, and he was about to open the next world. Li Yu himself felt a little rushed. But time doesn't wait for me. Li Yu took a deep breath, his face very solemn. Sword light, web, people in the web. This horrifying scene gave Li Yu a sense of urgency that he had never felt before. If the sword light broke through the web's blockade and slashed into this world, in front of that power that could destroy everything, even the laws of heaven and earth and the order of space and time, this world would definitely be destroyed. The web was also very dangerous. As long as one strand of the spider web entered this world, the entire world would be destroyed. Moreover, the figures strung on the spider web made Liu feel that the web was even more strange and terrifying than the sword light. This world was in danger of being destroyed at any time. If he didn't have enough strength to protect himself before the danger came, Liu's end would be no different from those living beings. With his small space that was still in its embryonic form, as long as it was swept by the spider web or the sword light, it would definitely turn into ashes. The unprecedented sense of urgency made Liu have no choice but to open the next world immediately. System, open the next world. Liu took a deep breath and issued an order to the system. The familiar roulette once again appeared in front of Liu. I wonder what world will be chosen this time. I hope I can find the opportunity to become an immortal. Liu glanced at the roulette expressionlessly and waved his hand lightly. Let's begin. Swish! The roulette whistled and spun. Stop! Liu shouted stop, and the roulette instantly stopped. The needle pointed to a world that made Liu very happy. It's actually here. It's really the heavens that fulfill man's wishes. If he wanted to find the opportunity to become an immortal, he wanted to find a path to immortality. The current world was a complete path to become an immortal, a path to become an immortal from immortal all the way to the heavens. In addition, this world had all the skills of cultivation, whether it was alchemy, refining tools, making talismans, setting up formations, spells, flying swords, planting medicinal herbs, taming spirit beasts, cultivating spirit insects, or opening caves. They all had a complete and clear system. It was simply an encyclopedia of cultivation. It's just the power system of this world. Is it the path of qi cultivation? Liu frowned slightly. The power system of this world was completely different from his current cultivation path. Humans had three treasures: essence, energy, and spirit. Essence was the body. Liu had already reached the great success of the holy body and had reached the limit. Spirit was the soul. Liu had already reached the peak of the sun spirit. However, Liu had yet to enter the path of qi. Essence, energy, and spirit. In the end, it's still the path of cultivating essence into qi, cultivating qi into spirit, cultivating spirit into emptiness, and cultivating emptiness into the way. Liu nodded calmly. The three treasures of essence, energy, and spirit combine into one, and the mighty power converges in one's body and embark on the path to immortality in one stroke. This is also the right path. Raising his eyes, Liu glanced at the resources in the warehouse and looked at the resources he had brought with him. He nodded and was ready to set off. It's just that the path of qi cultivation in this world requires something like a spiritual root. I have no idea what a spiritual root is, so I can only catch a few people and study them. Liu smiled and flicked his sleeves. System, let's go. A ray of light flashed, and Liu's figure disappeared without a trace in an instant. In this world where mortals cultivated to become immortals, a ferocious dragon that crossed the river barged in with incomparable arrogance would definitely set off monstrous waves in this world. Chapter 291. There was a huge mountain in front of him. The mountain peak towered into the clouds. The forest was verdant, and the clouds lingered. Where is this? Liu frowned and looked around. He realized that he was in the middle of a barren mountain. There was no village in front of him, no shops behind him, and not even half a person could be seen. There was no way to determine his location. Liu shook his head helplessly. The spatial structure of this world was rather special. The entire world was made up of 3 layers of heaven and earth. They were the immortal world, the spirit world, and the human world. The spirit qi of heaven and earth is so thin. This can only be the human world. Using his soul to sense the heaven and earth, Liu realized that although the heaven and earth were filled with spirit qi, the spirit qi was not dense. It was definitely not the immortal world filled with immortal qi, nor the spirit world filled with spirit qi. The human world? The human world of this world was also very vast. Liu could not determine his location at all. Let's get out of this barren mountain first. Liu smiled and shook his head. He randomly chose a direction and walked forward. The boots, modified from the Wind Dragon flag, had its own wind riding technique. Without a specific direction, Liu did not use any great magic. He just used the Wind Dragon boots to walk in the air. His robe fluttered, and he was as light as an immortal. The main purpose of coming to this world is, of course, to cultivate and become an immortal. Liu thought about his next plan as he walked. The cultivation methods of this world walk the path of qi cultivation and also require a spirit root. So first, I have to figure out what a spirit root is. Liu's lips curled into a mischievous smile. Something like a spirit root. Of course, I had to find a few white mice to study. In addition to his own cultivation, the system's missions had to be completed. The manufacturing system, find a host, and then build a shopping center. Liu flicked his sleeves and smiled. Since this world is a path for mortals to cultivate and become immortals, then find a mortal and let him plunder along the way to cultivate and become immortal. The various cultivation techniques of this world are worth collecting. As for the shopping center, Liu had other plans. There is no future in the human world, and I don't know the depth of the immortal world. Therefore, the shopping center can only be placed in the spiritual realm. Liu glanced at the resource warehouse and nodded. There are still 1,000 dragon pillars in the resource warehouse, so let's create a dragon race. When the time comes, it's also very suitable for the dragons to guard them all. His future plans were clear. With a clear goal, Liu felt more confident in his heart. Although he was very eager to become an immortal, Liu was still very unfamiliar with the path of qi cultivation. He must have a clear understanding before he dared to cultivate. Of course, Liu understood the principle of more haste, less speed. Whoosh! While moving forward, Liu suddenly heard a burst of rapid air-breaking sound coming from the sky. Are there any cultivators flying on swords? He turned his head and saw a bright silver sword light whizzing through the sky. Within the sword light, a middle-aged man in a black robe stood with his head held high, looking around with a self-satisfied expression. This is a flying sword? Liu looked at the figure flying through the sky and frowned slightly. This flying sword doesn't have any sword intent that can cut through anything. Even the sword qi is very heterogeneous. It's not a sword cultivator at all. A flying sword is just a flying tool. A flying sword is not just a sword that can fly. Liu suddenly felt that the pool of sword qi in the immortal residence's garden was crying. A sword flying out, cutting through everything. This should be the true form of a flying sword, right? Of course, Liu had no intention of helping others walk on the path of sword cultivation. You can play however you want. That's your business. What does it have to do with me? But some things are just so helpless. If you don't provoke others, others will come and provoke you. When the whistling sword light flew near Liu, the man in the sword light suddenly looked at Liu in surprise. A mortal can actually fly in the sky. Wind escape technique? That pair of boots is actually a treasure? The sword light suddenly stopped in front of Liu. The middle-aged man looked at Liu with shining eyes. His eyes were fixed on the boots on Liu's feet, unable to move away. Ha ha! What good luck! The middle-aged man laughed loudly and looked at Liu with arrogance and malevolence. Kid, a mortal has a treasure on him. Treasuring a jade ring is a crime. In your next life? Sigh. Before the middle-aged man could finish, Liu sighed and shook his head. You're seeking your own death. Hearing Liu's words, the middle-aged man's eyebrows twitched and he flew into a rage. Kid, you're seeking death. This is... The middle-aged man was about to attack when he suddenly heard a loud sound in the sky. Boom! An incomparably huge palm appeared out of thin air. A vast and majestic power shook heaven and earth. Senior, spare my life. Just as the middle-aged man was begging for mercy in a panic, a huge hand with boundless power caught him in its grasp. Hee, I was just looking for a little white mouse, but you delivered yourself to me. Liu pulled the middle-aged man in front of him and nodded with a smile. Ignoring the middle-aged man's begging, he stretched out a finger and pointed at the middle-aged man's forehead. Soul capture. A spiritual light flashed, and Liu directly captured the middle-aged man's soul. With a thought, a sun god thought came out of his body. The majestic and vast soul power rolled and absorbed the middle-aged man's soul into this thought. In an instant, all of the middle-aged man's memories were integrated into the sun god thought. When the thought returned to his body, the middle-aged man's memories were broken down, summarized, and organized under the immense soul power. All the boring memories were removed, leaving only knowledge of knowledge, cultivation techniques, geographical location, local customs, and so on. You country? Giant sword sect? This is Jing province? After breaking down the middle-aged man's soul, Liu already figured out where he was. Jing province of you country? Then there should be a place called Seven Mysteries sect? There should be a guy called Han Li, known as Han Pao Pao, right? This is really interesting. Liu smiled and focused on the middle-aged man. A foundation establishment realm cultivator. Huh? To be able to reach foundation establishment, he naturally has a spiritual root. Liu smiled and waved his hand to put the middle-aged man into the resource warehouse. System, scan this person's body and analyze his spiritual root. The spiritual root was the foundation of this world's cultivation. Without the spiritual root, one could not even enter the Qi cultivation stage. If Liu wanted to cultivate and become an immortal in this world, he had to figure out what the spiritual root was. Scan complete, analysis complete. The system quickly completed the task and transmitted the analysis results. Is this what the so-called spiritual root means? Seeing the system's analysis results, Liu felt a little surprised, but also felt that it was natural. This spiritual root was the degree of affinity a person had with the Qi of heaven and earth. The Qi of heaven and earth in this world had the attributes of the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, in addition to a few types of Qi of the 5 elements, were the wind, lightning, light, darkness, ice, and other attributes. With this spiritual root, one could sense the Qi of heaven and earth. From there, one could draw Qi into the body and embark on the path of Qi cultivation. Affinity with Qi of heaven and earth. Liu chuckled and shouted, "Qi of heaven and earth, listen to my command. Gather." In the previous world, the Holy Emperor's pinnacle cultivation technique, together with the spiritual word incantation, formed this kind of commanding heaven and earth with words, the law ability. With a command, the Qi of heaven and earth swarmed. Ha! Spiritual root? What kind of spiritual root do I need? Chapter 292. You country, Jing Province, Immortal Dawn Mountain, Black Ox Town. Liu looked at the small town in the valley and nodded with a smile. Is this the hometown of Pao Pao Han? I wonder if Pao Pao Han has already joined the Seven Mysteries sect? With a flick of his sleeve, Liu leisurely stepped into Black Ox Town. At the entrance of the town, there was actually a doorman. This 16 or 17-year-old doorman saw Liu leisurely walk over, and his face was filled with panic. How could a doorman of a small town in a poor valley have ever seen a big shot? Liu wore a golden crown on his head and a white brocade robe. The jade belt on his waist was sparkling and translucent, and the leather boots on his feet were spotless. His appearance was delicate and handsome, completely looking like a rich and noble young master. Seeing Li Yu's appearance, the doorman's heart was filled with fear. He hurriedly knelt on the ground and shouted, "Ding Xiao greets young master." You're quite clever." Liu chuckled and waved his hand. A gentle force helped Ding Xiao up. With a wave of his hand, a jade pendant fell into Ding Xiao's hand. "This is your reward." "Many thanks, young master." "Many thanks, young master." Ding Xiao saw the jade pendant in his hand and was immediately surprised and happy. He hurriedly knelt on the ground and exclaimed in his heart, "My goodness, he really is a benefactor, so generous. This thing is worth at least 100 taels of silver." Liu faintly smiled and walked into Black Ox Town. Black Ox Town was very small and only had one street. In the town, there was a Black Ox Inn and a Spring Fragrance restaurant. We've arrived at the restaurant. Let's take a seat. First, I'll make the system, then I'll start working on my own matters. Liyu's main goal in this world was to cultivate and become an immortal. After making the system, he would make preparations for his own cultivation. Young master, please. When Liu arrived at the Spring Fragrance restaurant, he found a private room and sat down after being greeted by the owner. Liu ordered some food and wine to send the waiter away. Then, he began to think about the manufacturing system. The cultivation in this world doesn't cultivate the heart or the mind. The main thing is to cultivate qi. Therefore, as long as there were enough resources, an immortal could be created. Didn't Han pow swallow pills along the way to increase his cultivation? Liu gently knocked on the table and nodded with a smile. In that case, the system I want to create must be related to resources. Alchemy, artifact refining, talisman crafting, and so on. My system must be able to refine anything. System, open the workbench. With an idea in mind, Liu immediately began to create the system. The workbench was unfurled and multicolored light flowed. The preparation of the manufacturing system had been completed. The new system will be named Furnace of Good Fortune. Since it could refine anything, the name Furnace of Good Fortune was very intimidating. Since it is the Furnace of Good Fortune, of course it will be in the shape of a pill furnace. System, according to the appearance of the yellow dragon furnace, create the Furnace of Good Fortune. On the workbench, multicolored lights surged, and a simple and heavy pill furnace appeared. 9 dragons circled around the pill furnace, and countless mysterious runes covered it. The aura was mysterious and immortal. Next is to activate the functions and set the permissions. Liu smiled and picked up the wine cup on the table. He took a sip and told the system. First, the resource library. The system resource library has the function of decomposing and refining. As long as there are materials and formulas, anything can be created. Next, I need the host to collect all kinds of cultivation skills in this world. Alchemy, artifact refining, talisman crafting, formation, and so on, all of these knowledge must be recorded. Thinking of this, Liu smiled. System, add the function of the heavenly projecting orb. It will help the host to remember and understand all the knowledge. Let him collect knowledge and skills everywhere. Yes, Han Peo's little bottle can mature spiritual herbs. My furnace of good fortune can't be worse than it. Then let's set up an exchange function. Low-aged spiritual herbs can be exchanged for higher-aged ones by using spirit stones. This function was very simple for Liu. As long as there was energy, as long as the information of the spiritual herbs was scanned, anything could be exchanged. Of course, it can't be exchanged. It must be refined. The furnace of good fortune controls the creation of heaven and earth. As long as there are spirit stones, anything can be created for you. Liu smiled and looked at the system workbench. Let's add an old grandpa. With an old grandpa, it will be easier to fool the host, and it will be more convenient to command. It will exist in the form of the furnace of good fortune spirit. After the function was set up, the following permissions were set up as usual. Liu naturally had the highest permissions. After the process was finished, Liu put in a stream of the boat of good fortune's aura. Multicolored light flowed, and the new system was completed. A palm-sized ancient pill furnace appeared in the multicolored light. When the pill furnace was activated, endless scenes of creation appeared. It was really mysterious and full of appearance. Not bad. I can use it to fool people. Liu casually took out a piece of leftover, refined red copper from the previous world and let the system create a pill furnace as a carrier. He installed the Furnace of Good Fortune system into it. This appearance is too conspicuous. I need to modify it and make it into an unremarkable broken furnace. A peerless treasure should be unremarkable like this. Liu smiled and waved his hand. The dazzling furnace of good fortune instantly turned into a broken furnace covered in rust. System, use a talisman to modify it. Let have the ability to merge into the host's body and gather and disperse at will. The system quickly completed the modification. At this point, the new system, Furnace of Good Fortune, was completed. The next step is to find host. Liu paid the bill and walked out of the Spring Fragrance restaurant. At this time, Liu also managed to get some information from the shopkeeper. He knew that the brat named Han, Li, had already been in the Seven Mysteries sect for 4 years. It's already this time? The Seven Mysteries sect has a good guy who is very suitable to be a host. Let's go take a look. Liu left Black Ox Town. His figure flashed, and he instantly arrived at the immortal Dawn Mountain where the Seven Mysteries sect was located. In front of him was a gorgeous mountain peak. Under the setting sun, the clouds on the mountain peak flickered with multicolored light. It was exceptionally beautiful. This aura. Looking at the mountain peak in front of him, Liu felt a burst of surprise. This was because he felt a mysterious and unfathomable aura from the mountain peak. This aura was very faint and almost undetectable. However, the essence of this aura was very profound and mysterious. Phoenix? There were a bunch of fire phoenixes and ice phoenixes in the system store. Liu was naturally familiar with this aura. Rosy Cloud's Mountain, is it also called Fallen Phoenix Mountain? In the memories of the giant sword sect member, there was such a rumor. Rosy Cloud's Mountain was called Fallen Phoenix Mountain in ancient times. According to legend, in ancient times, a 5-colored phoenix fell here and turned into this mountain. Fallen Phoenix Mountain? This is interesting. Liu smiled. With a flash of his figure, he silently entered the Rosy Clouds Mountain. Chapter 293. The aura of the phoenix is underground. In the immortal Dawn Mountain, Liu stood at the bottom of a valley. Looking at the soil and rocks on the ground, he suddenly understood. No wonder the aura was so faint that it couldn't be detected. No wonder no one took it away after so many years. It was buried under the lava. With Liu's current strength, he was only one step away from becoming an immortal. In the human realm and the spirit realm, he was invincible. That was why he could see where the phoenix's corpse was hidden. If it was someone else, they wouldn't even be able to sense the aura of the phoenix. Let's see how many bones are left. Liu flicked his finger, and a stream of mysterious yellow qi seeped into the ground. The ground under his feet surged like waves, as if something was coming out of the ground. This movement was very big, but Liu had already set up the two-realm separation technique. Even if the ground collapsed, the outside of the valley wouldn't be able to feel the slightest movement. In a moment, a huge phoenix skeleton, about 100 feet long, sparkled like jade and emitted a sparkling light, emerged from the ground. Even though it had been dead for countless years, and even though its flesh had long decayed, the skeleton still shone with a gorgeous light, emitting a noble aura that was above all living things. It really is a phoenix. Liu laughed. The ancient legends are not groundless. With a wave of his hand, the phoenix skeleton was stored in the resource storage. Liu nodded with satisfaction. This is really an unexpected harvest. In this world, divine beasts such as dragons, phoenixes, and Shilans were called true spirits. They were all existences equivalent to immortals. Although the strength of this phoenix skeleton had long dissipated, it still had the essence of an immortal. Liu was still able to decipher many things from the remains of the skeleton. With a wave of his hand, the mysterious yellow qi returned to the valley. Liu removed the two-realm separation technique and walked out of the valley. The valley over there is full of medicinal herbs. It should be the Seven Mysteries sect's Saint Han Valley. That's the Seven Mysteries sect's main hall, Sunset Peak. The Seven Mysteries sect's encampment wasn't big. Liu released his divine sense, and with a sweep, the entire Seven Mysteries sect's encampment entered his mind. Senior Brother Li, good skills. Senior Brother Li, nice saber technique. Senior Brother Li, you're amazing. At the bottom of a cliff, in an open space between the trees, dozens of youths stood in the field, cheering around a black-clothed youth with a cold expression and a long saber in his arms. The stern youth was called Li Feiyu. He was one of the most outstanding youths in the Seven Mysteries sect. His nickname was Li Hu. 4 years ago, Li Feiyu and Han Li entered the Seven Mysteries sect at the same time. Li Feiyu, whose aptitude was very ordinary, was unremarkable in the beginning, but in the past few years he had advanced by leaps and bounds, becoming one of the top figures of the younger generation. Farewell, everyone! Li Feiyu cupped his fists and bowed to the surroundings. His body swayed and soared into the sky like a dragon. He stepped on a few branches and disappeared after a few ups and downs. All right, good Qingong. Another round of cheers came from the flat ground of the forest. Hee, how interesting! Liu glanced at the black-robed youth who had floated away, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Young man, you're really going all out. You overdraft your potential and consume elixirs that consume your lifespan like rice. Liu's body swayed and followed the direction Li Feiyu left. Li Feiyu flew across the sky like a dragon, passing through the forest and treading on the trees with ease. Young man, you've been holding on so hard. Your mouth must be cramping, right? Liu followed behind Li Feiyu. Seeing the youth flying all the way, he laughed in his heart. Your qi and blood are excited, and your bone marrow is dry. Young man, you won't live past 20 years old like this. Liu's soul sense was clear about Li Feiyu's physical condition. Li Feiyu had been taking elixirs that overdraft his potential for a long time. Although his qi and blood were vigorous, his bone marrow was dry and his vitality was exhausted. At this moment, Li Feiyu's bone marrow felt like it was being scraped by a knife. He just pretended that nothing was wrong in front of outsiders. Whoosh! Li Feiyu flew across the sky and landed at the foot of a remote mountain. When he reached a place where there was no one around, Li Feiyu could no longer hold on. His face was pale, and his body trembled violently. He knelt on the ground with his long saber and clenched his teeth. Hold on. Hold on. You must hold on. Li Feiyu, you can't fall. You can't fall. Li Feiyu gritted his teeth and let out a roar from his throat. He supported his body with all his might and did not let himself fall. However, the intense pain all over his body surged like waves, and Li Feiyu's consciousness became blurry. Young man, why are you still holding on? You won't live past 20 years old. Why are you still working so hard? Liu's figure landed beside Li Feiyu and asked the young man, who was almost delirious but was still holding on. Why am I still holding on? If I hold on, I can still live. If I don't, I will be thrown into a mass grave tomorrow. In a daze, Li Feiyu heard Liu's voice, which was like a murmur in his ear. Li Feiyu naturally replied. With Liu's soul cultivation, even a powerful cultivator would be easily confused by him, let alone a mortal like Li Feiyu who was almost at the end of his life. Since you want to live, why do you need to use that kind of medicine that overdraws your vitality? Liu also wanted to know why this youth wanted to seek his own death. Even if he gained strength by using that kind of medicine that overdrew his vitality, what could he do? In the end, wouldn't it be a dead end? My cultivation aptitude is too poor. In a place like the Seven Mysteries sect, in addition to fighting with hostile sects, there are also bloody internal struggles. Without strength, I would have died long ago. Li Feiyu answered. His body swayed more violently, as if he would fall at any time, but his voice was still very firm. Overdrawing my vitality to gain strength. At least let me live for a few more years. What will happen in the future? Who can say for sure? Only by living can I have a chance. Even if I have to risk my life, I have to live. Even if you have to risk your life, you have to live. Hearing this, Liu was speechless. This was a young man with a tenacious and unwavering will. He rationally analyzed the pros and cons, was not swayed by life and death, and was ruthless to others and to himself. What such a person lacked was only an opportunity. Unlike Xiao Feng's perseverance that would never give up, Li Feiyu's temperament was calm and rational, but also determined to move forward bravely. After weighing the pros and cons, choose the most beneficial path. Even if you know that it is a dead end, you still step in without hesitation. I admire your courage, and your will moves me. Liu smiled and nodded. Young man, I will give you a chance to change your fate. I look forward to you bringing me a bigger surprise. Waving his hand, Liu threw the furnace of good fortune into Li Feiyu's hand, laughed, and his figure disappeared in an instant. Ah, this is... When a furnace of good fortune entered his hand, a hot current flowed into his body, and Li Feiyu instantly woke up. Just now, what happened? Chapter 294. It seems that someone was talking to me just now. Li Feiyu shook his head and stood up. He found that the unspeakable pain in his body had disappeared, and there was a worn-out copper furnace in his hand. What is this? Just now, in a daze, someone seemed to talk to me and said that he would give me a chance to change my fate. Is this furnace the chance to change my fate? Li Feiyu raised the worn-out copper furnace the size of a palm and looked at it for a while, but he couldn't see anything special about it. I don't feel pain anymore, and I'm full of strength. I know my body very well. It can't be cured if I overdraw my vitality. Now it's cured? Li Feiyu took a deep breath, and his heart beat violently. Did I meet a cultivator? Cultivators were not rare in this world, and there were often legends of meeting immortals in the mortal world. Thinking of those legends, Li Feiyu's heart was burning. This must be a treasure. It must be a treasure of a cultivator. Li Feiyu looked at the worn-out copper furnace with his eyes shining. Thinking of a legend, he quickly picked up the long knife and cut his hand, and pressed his bloody palm on the worn-out copper furnace. Buzz, the copper furnace in his hand, burst into a brilliant golden light, and with a boom, it burst into countless light spots. This is, in Li Feiyu's horrified eyes, countless light spots rushed into his body. Boom! A huge force rushed into his body like a raging tide. Li Feiyu only felt that the strength in his body had skyrocketed, and endless vitality burst out from his muscles, bones, blood, and flesh. It was as if his whole body had been reborn, and he was brand new inside and out. There were no longer any symptoms of his bone marrow drying up and his vitality drying up. Huh, cured? My overdrawn vitality has been recovered? My body has been cured? Li Feiyu laughed ecstatically. He waved the long knife in his hand and used the wind and thunder knife technique. The wind whistled like thunder, and it really had the wind and thunder scene. Even my martial arts have improved so much. Haha, it's really worthy of being an immortal supreme treasure. Li Feiyu put the knife back into the sheath and laughed in high spirits. Hey, if that's all an immortal supreme treasure can do, I might as well kill myself. At this moment, an old man's disdainful voice rang out in Li Feiyu's mind. Who? Li Feiyu's face changed. He pulled out his long saber with a clang sound. His eyes scanned the surroundings and became alert. Stop looking around. I'm in your head. A loud hong sound rang out in his mind. Brilliant radiance blossomed. Immortal clouds curled up, and extraordinary colors appeared. A giant pill furnace with 9 dragons revolving around it and countless mysterious runes engraved on it rose up from the dazzling radiance. Endless scenes of good fortune circulated around the pill furnace. The good fortune of heaven and earth, the birth of all living things, was mysterious and unfathomable. Boom! The cauldron, which was glowing with treasured light, instantly exploded and turned into a ball of flowing radiance. An old man with white hair and a white beard rose from the light and appeared in Li Feiyu's mind. You, what are you? Li Feiyu was dumbfounded. Bastard, I'm the true spirit of good fortune. The old man glared at Li Feiyu and scolded angrily. You bastard, you smear my face with blood. How dare you ask me what I am? Bastard, you're such a bastard. Why would His Majesty Emperor Yu bestow this old man to you? Li Feiyu was tongue-tied. You, are you that furnace? Umph. The true spirit of good fortune snorted and rolled his eyes at Li Feiyu with an expression that said, You're not too stupid. But how did you turn into a human? Could it be that the furnace has become a spirit? And who is His Majesty Emperor Yu? Li Feiyu felt that his brain was not enough. What on earth was going on? You're the furnace that has become a spirit. The true spirit of good fortune roared at Li Feiyu. His hair and beard stood up in anger. I'm the device spirit of the furnace of good fortune. Device spirit. Do you understand? Only immortal artifacts have device spirits. All right, device spirit. Li Feiyu could only agree. Then he asked that His Majesty Emperor Yu is the one who talked to me when I was in a daze? You wish. I was the one who talked to you earlier. His Majesty Emperor Yu is the celestial emperor, the great emperor of the immortal world. How noble is his status? How could he come to such a filthy place like the mortal world? Li Yu wanted to put on airs. Of course, he would not let Li Feiyu know that he had been here. More importantly, the opportunity bestowed by others and the opportunity obtained by oneself were two completely different concepts. In order to avoid any unnecessary suspicion from Li Feiyu, he could not reveal that Li Yu had been here. Oh, I see. Li Feiyu smiled and rolled his eyes. Then why did you say that you were bestowed to me by His Majesty Emperor Yu? It's a long story. The true spirit of creation stroked his beard with a nostalgic look. Back then, Great Emperor Yu absorbed the creation chi from the void, fused it with a red refined copper, and used the nine heavens' true yang fire to forge me. Then, at this point, the true spirit of creation's mouth twitched a few times, as if he found it difficult to speak. Then what? Say it. Say it. Li Feiyu heard that the true spirit of creation was cut off at the crucial moment. He immediately urged the true spirit of creation. Cough, cough, there's nothing to hide. After Great Emperor Yu had forged me, he gave me to Princess Ting as a toy. Li Feiyu was stunned for a moment and almost burst out laughing. That means you're just a toy? What do you know? The true spirit of creation roared again. Even if I'm a toy, I'm still an immortal's toy, and a toy created by the Celestial Emperor. I'm an immortal artifact. Do you understand? Yes. Immortal artifact. Immortal artifact. Please continue. Continue. Li Feiyu seemed to be addicted to listening to the story and urged the true spirit of creation to continue. Oomph. The true spirit of creation snorted, a bitter look appearing on his face as he continued speaking. Princess Ting was still young. After playing with me for a while, she got tired of me and left me in the Immortal Abode's warehouse. Those days were really dark and gloomy. The true spirit of creation sighed and shook his head. Luckily, one day, when Great Emperor Yu went to the Immortal Abode's warehouse to take something, he heard my cries and brought me out. When the Great Emperor saw what happened to me, he immediately gave a verbal order. The Great Emperor said, "True spirit of creation, you will definitely meet a real master." Then, the Great Emperor sent me to the human realm. After 10,000 years, I finally met you. You are naturally the real master that the Great Emperor mentioned. That's it. After hearing this, Li Feiyu's mouth twitched violently. What real master? He was obviously trying to fool you. You were obviously thrown away by the Great Emperor. But, Immortal Abode? Celestial Emperor? Immortal Artifact? I'm afraid this broken furnace really has some ability. Chapter 295. The creation true spirit was trying to fool Li Yu, but Li Yu was too lazy to care. After leaving the Seven Mysteries sect, Li Yu broke through the void and went straight to the sea. Although this world also had methods to use the power of space, such as storage bags, storage rings, teleportation arrays, and so on. However, compared to the previous world, the power of space was not as active. However, at Li Yu's cultivation level, all of his power came from himself. The Yang spirit could transform the void and use the teleportation ability, so it was not affected by the external environment. After taking a step, an endless sea appeared in front of him. Is this the scattered star ocean? Li Yu looked up and nodded with a smile. There are also a group of flood dragons living in the scattered star ocean. The 1,000 dragon pillars in the resource warehouse are just right for me to use. My 9 dragons Rui carriage still lacks a carriage driver. The scattered star ocean was divided into the inner sea and the outer sea. On the islands of the inner sea, there were many cities built by cultivators, and there were also many very tyrannical sects. These human cultivators made a living by hunting demons. The inner cores of demons were the main materials for refining pills, while the bones and scales of demons were materials for refining tools. The various sects, islands, and cities of the inner sea prospered because of this. As for the outer sea, it was the territory of demons. All kinds of tyrannical demon beasts and demon cultivators emerged endlessly, and it was very dangerous. Except for a few tyrannical cultivators, ordinary human cultivators rarely set foot in it. Liu naturally wanted to go to the outer sea of the scattered star ocean. With a flash of clear light, Liu stepped out and instantly arrived in the depths of the outer sea of the scattered star ocean. If I want to deal with demons, I still need to make some preparations. The human cultivators of the scattered star ocean hunted demon beasts, which naturally made the demons hostile to the human race. In the scattered star ocean, when humans and demons met, the first reaction was to pick up weapons and start fighting. There was no need to talk nonsense. With Liu's strength, directly suppressing all the demons in the scattered star ocean was not a problem. However, it was impossible for them to be truly convinced. I still have some use for these flood dragons. Once they transform into dragons, they'll be the ones guarding the stronghold in the city. We still have to plan for the long term. We can't just rely on brute force to suppress them. Liu's figure flashed, landing on a small island in the sea. With a wave of his hand, he cast the world separation technique, isolating the entire island. If I want to subdue a group of flood dragons, I can only become a true dragon. Turning around, Liu took a glance at the resource vault and smiled. Then, he waved his hand and released the thousands of meters long dragon ancestor, which was shining with a golden light. Although the shape-shifting divine ability can also transform into a dragon, it's still lacking in foundation. It's better to refine this ancestral dragon and merge it into the embryo of Tao of the innate saint body, so that my body will have the ability to transform into a true dragon. If he refined a true dragon, then he would have a true dragon transformation fixed in his body. With a wave of his hands, divine splendor filled the sky. With a tremor of majestic power, the incomparably huge ancestral dragon body instantly exploded into 480 million talismans. One by one, the tiny dragon-shaped talismans meandered in the air, radiating brilliant light like a galaxy. After comprehending the system's method of transforming magic treasures into talisman structures, my spell has basically taken shape. Liu chuckled, clasped his hands, and shouted, "Dragon talisman, enter!" The 480 million talismans transformed from the ancestral dragon body instantly rushed into Liu's body. Innate saint body merged with the dragon talismans. Streaks of chi and blood radiance bloomed, and purple gold flames surged. One by one, the dragon-shaped talismans merged into Liu's body and bloodline. Shape-shifting divine ability, true dragon transformation. After all the talismans merged into his body, Liu shouted and rushed up. The brilliant light was like the rising sun, shining brightly. Roar! In the sea of light, a giant true dragon that was 3,000 meters long, covered in noble purple gold scales and shining with purple gold flames, soared into the sky. The vast dragon might shook the world. Is this the true dragon transformation? Feeling the vast power contained in the dragon body, Liu found that after changing into the dragon body, although his great emperor-level power did not increase, there were some subtle changes in his own power. The flying technique of riding the clouds and the ability to control water had become instincts of his body. He did not need to cast spells when he was in human form. This appearance is not bad. The giant dragon head nodded slightly. With a wave of its dragon claw, Liu removed the separation of two realms spell. Roar! An earth-shattering dragon roar rushed up. Wind and clouds surged. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The huge purple-gold dragon body roared into the sky, and endless dragon might spread out. Vast power rushed up. Heaven and earth shook. The void trembled. The entire mortal realm shook endlessly with this earth-shattering dragon roar. All the chi of heaven and earth was boiling and rolling. With Li Yu's emperor-level power, he was already a peak supremacy even in the spiritual realm. In this mortal realm, where the strongest was only in the soul formation stage, he was already an existence that could destroy heaven and earth. This dragon roar caused the entire human world to be in shock. Countless cultivators were startled by this dragon roar. A true dragon was an immortal-level existence. In this mortal realm, where the strongest was only in the soul formation stage, when had they ever heard of the existence of a true dragon? Now, a true dragon had appeared in the mortal realm? Why would such a powerful existence come to a small quagmire like the mortal realm? Is it really fun for a true dragon to bully small fries like us? This is a dragon? A true dragon? In the inner sea of the disarray star seas, on the islands, in the cities, and in the sect, countless people rushed out in horror. They rode on a streak of light and rushed into the sky, craning their necks and looking into the distance. There are true dragons in this world. That is really a true dragon. Even though they were very far away, some nascent soul stage cultivators were still able to see the scene in the distance clearly. In the endless sea of clouds, that huge true dragon shone with a purple-gold divine light all over. It was winding and flying rapidly. Its power was boundless, and its aura was incomparably majestic. Its divine might was earth-shattering. The true dragon had descended, and the world was shocked. Li Yu naturally didn't care if he scared people or not. Roar, rushing out of the sea of clouds, Li Yu raised his dragon head and let out another long roar. This dragon roar was not just a simple dragon roar, but a sentence in the dragon language. My name is Yu, and with the bloodline of the true dragon as a guide, I summon all descendants of the true dragon's bloodline. I have descended to this world. Come quickly and meet me. As soon as this dragon roar was heard, all the descendants of the true dragon in the mortal realm immediately cheered. Countless Jiao dragons, dragon turtles, and other dragon descendants rushed toward the disarray star seas in a frenzy. In the disarray star seas, which was the closest, the entire sea was boiling. Roar, roar, loud beastly roars rang out. As the waves rolled, Jiao dragons that were hundreds of feet long soared into the sky from the waves. Huge dragon turtles lifted the huge waves and surged out. In addition, other sea demons that were not descendants of the true dragon also flocked over. Ancestor, the descendants of the true dragon, pay respects to the ancestor. We pay respects to His Majesty Emperor Yu. The Jiao dragons and dragon turtles floated out of the water and knelt in front of Li Yu. Dragon God, we pay respects to His Majesty Emperor Yu. The other demon beasts that were not descendants of the true dragon also kowtowed to Li Yu. In an instant, the surface of the entire outer sea of the disarray star seas was densely packed with countless demon beasts. There were also countless demon beasts in the inner seas, howling as they rushed madly toward the outer seas. They didn't care about the human cultivators at all. At this time, no one dared to make a move against these demonic beasts. The disarray star seas are going to change. At this moment, all the cultivators in the disarray star seas were in a state of panic. Chapter 296. It had been a month since the true dragon descended. In this month, all the demons in the scattered star ocean worshipped the dragon god. Then, all the dragon descendants in the human world rushed to the scattered star ocean. The scene of thousands of demons worshipping the dragon god lasted for a whole month before calming down. In this month, all the industries related to hunting demons in the scattered star ocean became depressed. In this era where the true dragon had descended to the world and thousands of demons were worshipping it, no one had the guts to attack the demon beasts. These demons were worshipping the dragon god. If you killed the demons, wouldn't you be slapping the dragon god in the face? Even if you want to die, don't harm others. As a result, the scattered star ocean became depressed. Sect Master, this month's income. Sai, what should we do if this goes on? All the human cultivators in the scattered star ocean were frowning and sighing. Fortunately, a turn of events appeared. On this day, in the outer sea of the scattered star ocean, a brilliant light rushed out from the bottom of the sea and into the sky. A loud voice echoed between heaven and earth. I opened the Dragon Palace in the scattered star ocean. Within 10,000 miles of the Dragon Palace, you are under my protection. No one is to offend or fight. Apart from that, everything else is up to fate. When these words came out, both humans and demons rejoiced. Ha ha, that's great. His Majesty the Dragon God is very open-minded. The human cultivators in the scattered star ocean were beaming with joy. Everything returned to normal, and the scattered star ocean became prosperous again. The scattered star ocean was vast and boundless, and the Dragon Palace was a forbidden area. Moreover, it was normal for the Dragon Palace to designate a forbidden area. With the might of the true dragon, no one dared to offend it, even if it was not designated as a forbidden area. The humans were happy, and so were the demons. For the demons, the strong preyed on the weak. It was completely natural for the big fish to eat the small fish. In the entire scattered star ocean, apart from the demons that were hunted by the humans, the demons fought and devoured each other even more fiercely. After the dragon god descended, the billions of demons in the scattered star ocean did not dare to make any moves. They could only hide in their lairs and did not dare to go out. Countless demons had not even eaten a bite of meat for an entire month. At this moment, all the humans and demons understood the dragon god's attitude. Naturally, they could go out boldly. Those who needed to be killed were killed, and those who needed to be eaten were eaten. Everything went on as usual. For Liu, this was normal. I'm not here to be a saint, nor am I here to save the world. What does it have to do with me if you kill each other until rivers of blood flow? Placing the eternal immortal abode at the bottom of the scattered star seas and creating a safe zone, there was already Liu's greatest mercy. Greetings to His Majesty Emperor Yu. Within eternal immortal manner, tens of thousands of flood dragons, dragon turtles, and other dragon descendants had gathered in a vast hall to pay their respects to the dragon sovereign. Get up! At this moment, Liu had regained his human form and was sitting high up in the hall, accepting the worship of the dragon descendants. 5,000 flood dragons, 2,000 dragon turtles, and 1,000 giant snakes and sea beasts with the true dragon's bloodline. He already has 8,000 subordinates. That's right. Not bad. Liu secretly laughed in his heart. It was very worthwhile to take in this group of free loyal thugs. I came to this world only because the true dragon race is lacking in numbers. I have come to this world to bestow upon you an opportunity. It will give you a chance to morph into dragons and strengthen the true dragon race. Liu sat on a high platform and spouted nonsense with a straight face. Your Majesty is merciful. As soon as these words were spoken, all of the dragon descendants shed tears of gratitude. They were wild with joy and willingly kowtowed to Liu. This is the true dragon transformation technique. You must cultivate diligently and do not slack off. With a wave of his hand, specks of light whizzed out and entered the minds of the dragon descendants. Of course, the true dragon transformation technique Liu had given them only focused on condensing true blood, purifying their bloodline, and morph into dragons. There were no further chapters on opening acupoints or rebirth from a drop of blood. Because the path of cultivation in this world was different, there was no need to bring out the physical martial arts and spiritual cultivation. Condense true blood, purify bloodline, morph into dragons. Seeing the mysterious technique in their minds, the dragon descendants cried tears of joy and knelt before Liu. Dragon descendants of level 8 and above can stay. The rest can leave. The cultivation realms of the demons in the human world were divided into 10 levels. Level 8 was equivalent to the early nascent soul stage of humans. Liu glanced around and found that there were exactly 1,000 dragon descendants of level 8 and above. Among them, there was a dragon turtle and 3 flood dragons of level 9. There was even a golden flood dragon of level 10 nascent soul stage. Your cultivation is somewhat similar to that of dragon descendants, reaching the standard of bloodline inheritance. I might as well fulfill your wish. Liu nodded at the dragonkin and then shouted, "Focus your mind and calm your chi. Activate the true Dharma. Prepare to accept the bloodline inheritance." After having the system extract the true dragon bloodline and dragon soul from the 1,000 dragon pillars in the resource vault, Liu waved his hand and 1,000 rays of golden light shot into the sky. The true dragon blood gathered the power of the dragon's soul and injected it into the bodies of the dragon descendants. Endless brilliance blossomed, and 1,000 rays of golden light shone in the entire hall. The only one left was the level 9 dragon turtle. The dragon turtle's body was huge. Its huge shell had a diameter of almost 10,000 feet. Its huge body took up a large space in the hall. The dragon turtle didn't know why Liu didn't give it the opportunity to transform into a dragon, but it didn't dare to complain. It could only look at the other dragon descendants enviously and lower its head. "You don't have to be depressed." Liu glanced at the level 9 dragon turtle and smiled. "I see that your bloodline is closer to the bloodline of Dragon Bashya, so I left you alone." "Your Majesty," the dragon turtle didn't know what Liu meant, but it vaguely sensed that there was still a chance for things to turn around. It craned its head and looked at Liu expectantly. "Dragon Bashya is also a true dragon bloodline. I still have the bloodline of Dragon Bashya on my hands. Would you be willing to inherit it?" Liu looked at the dragon turtle with a smile. The so-called Bashya was naturally the turtle dragon egg in Liu's hand. After the system analyzed the egg, Liu discovered that the so-called turtle dragon also possessed an extremely dense true dragon bloodline. It was no different from the legendary Dragon Bashya. An idea occurred to Liu when he saw the giant dragon turtle. If this dragon turtle inherited the turtle dragon bloodline, it could grow to a colossal size and install a portable immortal residence on it. It would be very interesting to travel the world with it. I'm willing. Thank you for your kindness, Your Majesty." Naturally, the dragon turtle wouldn't pass up such an opportunity. It quickly nodded and kowtowed to Liu to express its gratitude. "Very good. I'll bestow the bloodline of Bashya to you." Liu smiled. He directly extracted the bloodline power of the turtle dragon egg and injected it into the dragon turtle's body. At the same time, he also gave it the modified true dragon transformation technique based on the turtle dragon's bloodline. Boom! Endless golden light burst out in the hall. Vigorous shadows of dragons soared into the sky, and resounding dragon roars echoed through the clouds. At this point, Liu had created 1,000 true dragons in this world with the true dragon bloodline and the true dragon transformation technique. Of course, the true dragon bloodline had been added with the mark of loyalty. 1,000 fighters with unlimited potential were born. Chapter 297. Roar. Roar. Dragon roars rang out as 1,000 true dragons that were more than 1,000 feet long appeared in the main hall. Down below, there was also a gigantic dragon turtle, which had doubled in size and had a diameter of 6,000 feet. The dragon turtle raised its head high and let out a sonorous dragon roar as well. Not bad. We have all the hired thugs and one to pull the chariot. We also have a dragon turtle that can carry the eternal immortal abode. The plan is perfect. Liu smiled and nodded. He sent the newly formed true dragons out and let them cause a ruckus outside. He calmed down and thought about his own cultivation path. These 1,000 true dragons ran out to roam the sky and the sea, scaring countless humans and demons in the scattered star ocean. Was the dragon monarch going to move the entire true dragon race here? One true dragon was already very scary, but now there were thousands of them? Although these new true dragons were still young dragons, they were not so strong that they were unstoppable. But this was already very scary. Liu was too lazy to care about whether or not he had scared others. His thoughts were all on his own cultivation. How do I cultivate chi in this world? The only cultivation technique he had now was the one in the memory of the Foundation establishment cultivator from the Giant Sword sect. Although this cultivation technique was very ordinary, Liu could still see many things. The path of chi cultivation is actually a process of constantly absorbing and condensing the essence chi of heaven and earth. The difference in cultivation level is actually just a difference in the quantity and quality of the essence chi. Even though he understood what chi cultivation was, Liu still could not figure out. Liu rubbed his forehead and fell in a deep thought. Constantly absorbing the essence chi of heaven and earth can become an immortal? Isn't this nonsense? It's definitely not that simple. Liu shook his head. The giant sword sect cultivation technique is not enough for reference. I still need to obtain more and more profound cultivation techniques. There is a cultivation technique in the scattered star ocean that is worth studying. Liu glanced in the direction of the inner sea of the chaotic star seas and smiled. Fine, I'll go and take a look myself. Liu rose to his feet and walked out of the eternal immortal mansion at the bottom of the sea. With a single step, he vanished without a trace. Chaotic Star, Sea's Inner Sea, Stellar Sky City. This was the base of the Star Palace. The Star Palace was the strongest sect in the Chaotic Star Ocean, the ruler of the Chaotic Star Ocean. Divine is sense-fused light. This cultivation technique is worth studying. The master of the Star Palace and his wife were known as the two saints of the heavenly star. They cultivated the divine, essence-fused light and had both reached the late nascent soul stage. Their strength was enough to intimidate the scattered star seas. Liu was rather interested in the divine origin magnet light that was formed from the power of the five elements. On the path of chi refinement in this world, the more profound one's cultivation is, the more complete the power of the five elements is needed. After the soul formation realm, one could only make a breakthrough after completing all five elements. Therefore, my chi cultivation path must be complete with all five elements. Liu's figure appeared in the depths of the Star Palace's holy mountain. As soon as he appeared, Liu sensed an enormous surge of divine essence fused into the surrounding space. The vital chi of heaven and earth was stirred up by this surge of divine essence fused into a chaotic mess. The divine essence fused light really is something. Liu nodded with a smile. With a wave of his hand, he enveloped the entire holy mountain with a realm separation technique. The so-called holy mountain was only a small mountain on this large island. The reason why it was called Holy Mountain was because there was a strange treasure placed here. It was a strange treasure that was filled with boundless divine, essence-fused light and was shaped like a small mountain. Many years ago, the Star Palace Master and his wife discovered this divine, essence-fused light at the bottom of the sea by chance. They paid an enormous price to move this divine, essence-fused light to the back mountain of the Star Palace. The divine, essence-fused light contained boundless divine, essence-fused light that countered all five elements. Whether it was the vital chi of heaven and earth, a cultivator's true yuan and spirit chi, or treasures of the five elements, they were all countered by the divine, essence-fused light. The appearance of this killing weapon naturally made the Star Palace Master and his wife famous. However, the Star Palace Master and his wife were also held in place by the divine, essence-fused light and were unable to leave the holy mountain. It's true that both success and failure are due to the divine, essence-fused light. Liu chuckled and followed the jade-paved path up the holy mountain. On the entire sacred mountain, there were all kinds of jade-paved roads and jade buildings everywhere. At a glance, the entire holy mountain could be called a jade mountain. This wasn't because the Star Palace Master was so extravagant that he didn't have any friends, but because he had no other choice. Jade also originates from the earth and belongs to the earth element. Although it can block the divine essence-fused light compared to metal, it still can't solve the problem. Liu looked up and saw a jade hall in front of him and shook his head with a smile. These jade stones were naturally used by the Star Palace Master to block the divine, essence-fused light in an attempt to escape. Unfortunately, it was meaningless. If it was just pure divine, essence-fused light, it could be blocked as long as it wasn't metal. However, this is the divine, essence-fused light of heaven and earth. Everything in the world belongs to the five elements. It's not something that can be countered by jade. Li Yu smiled and walked to the vicinity of the Jade Palace. There was a jade platform outside the hall. On the platform was a 500-foot tall, pitch-black boulder shaped like a mountain. Rays of five-colored light shone from this small mountain as boundless divine, essence-fused light surged out. The surrounding vital chi of heaven and earth was constantly being broken down and destroyed and constantly being born. The vital chi of heaven and earth was in a state of chaos. So this is the divine, essence-fused light? It really does have some skills. Li Yu's strength came from his body and soul, so he was naturally not affected by the divine, essence-fused light. It was just that the soul buster bell at his waist was a bronze bell and only trembled slightly under the divine, essence-fused light. The soul buster bell was a sage ruler divine weapon. Even if it was a bronze bell, the divine, essence-fused light could not be shaken by the divine, essence-fused light. System scanned the divine, essence-fused light and analyzed the divine, essence-fused light. Li Yu gave the system an order and then turned to look at the Jade Hall. In the hall, a middle-aged man with sharp eyebrows and bright eyes and a beautiful woman sat cross-legged on a jade futon. Their bodies were surrounded by five-colored light, and it was unknown whether they were absorbing the divine, essence-fused light or resisting it. Are they cultivating the divine, essence-fused light? Li Yu smiled. System scanned these two and analyzed the cultivation method of the divine, essence-fused light. In a moment, the divine, essence-fused light and divine, essence-fused light had been scanned. Li Yu did not plan to stay any longer and turned to leave. Who is it? Who are you? At this moment, the two people in the Jade Hall had just finished cultivating. When they opened their eyes, they suddenly saw Li Yu standing at the entrance of the hall and were immediately shocked. Five-colored light flowed from his hand as the divine, essence-fused light spread out. How is this possible? The Star Palace Master and his wife were about to attack when they suddenly realized that Li Yu was smiling under the majestic divine, essence-fused light and was not affected in the slightest. The two shuddered and were indescribably shocked. Chapter 298. This is a little awkward. Li Yu smiled, looking a little helpless. He had never paid attention to nascent soul cultivators like the Star Palace Master and his wife, so he did not pay attention to whether they were about to wake up or not. He did not expect to bump into them just as he was about to leave. Senior, the middle-aged woman looked at Li Yu with an extremely shocked expression. There was a hint of fear in her eyes. Senior, are you not affected by the magnetic force? Senior, please take pity on us. The middle-aged man saw the opportunity and hurriedly knelt on the ground, kowtowing to Li Yu. Senior, we have been trapped here for many years. We can only move a little in this Jade Hall, but we can't leave the hall at all. Please take pity on us and save us from this sea of suffering. Senior, please take pity on us. At this time, the middle-aged woman also reacted and knelt on the ground, kowtowing to Li Yu. I see. Li Yu rubbed his chin and looked at the two of them with a smile. You being trapped here has to do with the cultivation method you cultivate. I know nothing about your cultivation method. If I act rashly, the consequences will be unpredictable. Cultivation method. Yes. The two of them looked at each other and nodded. Senior, this is the divine, essence-fused light that we cultivate. Please take a look. The middle-aged man took out a jade slip and raised it above his head, presenting it to Li Yu. Let me take a look at it first and see if I can save you from this sea of suffering. Li Yu reached out and took the jade slip into his hand. With a touch of his spirit, the divine essence-fused light cultivation method was transmitted to Li Yu's spirit. System, send me the divine essence-fused light cultivation method that you just deduced. Li Yu had the system scan the two of them's cultivation process and deduced a copy of the divine essence-fused light cultivation method. Now that he had the original copy, he could compare the two to see if there was any difference. There is indeed a difference, and the difference is not small. With a thought, he instantly compared the two types of divine essence-fused light. Liu discovered that the divine metamagnet ray, deduced by the system, was based on the power of the five elements. It emphasized the principle of the five-element generation and suppression, which was more in line with the essence. On the other hand, the Master of Star Palace's divine light of origin magnetism focused more on the lethality of the force of origin magnetism. It did not delve into the essence of the five elements. System combined the two types of divine as sense-fused rays and perform a deduction. Not only was it lethal, but it was also compatible with the nature of the five elements. Of course, it was even better. Now that the problem of the cultivation method had been solved, all that was left was to free the Star Palace Master. I see. Liu pretended to be enlightened and turned to smile at the two of them. He pointed at the origin magnet mountain outside and said, "It's actually very simple to escape. It just depends on whether you're willing to part with it." What does senior mean? The Star Palace Master and his wife were taken aback. Could it be that this senior was planning to destroy this divine, essence-fused mountain? Under the interference of the divine, essence-fused mountain's powerful force of origin magnetism, regardless of whether it was Dharma spells or Dharma treasures, once they hit it, they would be disintegrated into chaotic chi of heaven and earth by the force of origin magnetism. It was completely ineffective. However, since this senior could say so, he must be confident. The Star Palace Master and his wife looked at each other and immediately made a decision. "Senior, please take action. We can't thank you enough." "All right," Liu nodded and said with a smile, "All things are within the five elements. However, the power of space is not within the five elements." As he said that, Liu waved his hand. An invisible wave swept out and directly stored the divine, essence-fused mountain into the resource vault. With the disappearance of the divine, essence-fused mountain, the force of origin magnetism that enveloped the surrounding space instantly dissipated. Once the shackles are removed, it's indeed easy. The Star Palace Master and his wife felt the force of origin magnetism that enveloped the surroundings dissipate. They only felt as if a huge mountain had been removed from their heads, and their entire bodies felt refreshed. "Thank you, Senior. Thank you, Senior." The two of them joyfully kowtowed to Liu and thanked him. "No need to be so polite." Liu smiled and waved his hand. This emperor also sensed the rich force of origin magnetism here. "I was curious, so I came to take a look. Now that this matter is over, I will take my leave." With that, Liu turned and walked away. "Senior, please bestow your name." Behind him, the Star Palace Master and his wife asked in a loud voice. "My name is Yu." Liu smiled and took a step forward. In an instant, he was gone. "This emperor? Yu? Who is this expert?" The Star Palace Master and his wife looked at each other in dismay. They simply couldn't figure out who this Emperor Yu was. His Majesty Emperor Yu's cultivation is unfathomable. How can such an expert hold the position of the emperor? How can there be such a country in this world? I've never heard of such a person before. The middle-aged man frowned, unable to make heads or tails of it. Unless the two were shocked. Unless he's not human. Could it be? The two recalled the earth-shattering roar of a dragon a month ago. Their faces fell. It's His Majesty, the Dragon Emperor. Cold sweat broke out all over their bodies. They looked at each other, and their faces were filled with joy. Fortunately, this Dragon Emperor is very kind and easy to talk to. If he had a bad temper, he could have just slapped him and the entire Star Palace would have ceased to exist. Liu is naturally very kind. Even when he was scamming people, he was as kind as ever. Not bad. At least it wasn't in vain for me to put down my pride and do it myself. Back in the Eternal Manor, Liu sat in the Great Hall and looked at the magnetic mountain in the storehouse. He smiled and nodded. The divine ray of magnetism is in my hands, and it comes with the magnetic mountain. With this as the foundation, I can begin to analyze this world's Qi training Tao. Liu slowly closed his eyes as the divine metamagnet ray cultivation method circulated within his spirit. His spirit's enormous calculation ability was constantly deciphering this cultivation method. Qi training, foundation establishment, Jin Dan, nascent soul, and soul formation. This technique only reaches the soul formation stage. It doesn't touch on the return to void, body integration, Mahayana, and tribulation transcendence levels. But this is enough. What Liu needed was the theory behind this technique, and what he needed was the theory behind it. With this as a reference, he could conclude a cultivation method that was suitable for him and the laws of this world. Draw qi into the body and into the dantian. Qi is divided into the 5 elements. The 5 elements reinforce each other, and qi circulates. 5 elements combine, qi condenses into a core. Polarity separates, magnetism is born. Birth of a nascent soul when the core breaks, divine ray of magnetism, 5 elements and 5 colors, qi and soul combine, nascent soul and soul formation. The entire divine ray of magnetism circulated in his mind as he comprehended and deciphered it. So that's how it is. Training qi. It is indeed qi that is being trained. After a long while, Liu laughed heartily as he stood up. He already had a deep understanding of the so-called qi training path. The path of qi training in this world from beginning to end was all about qi, absorbing the qi of heaven and earth, cultivating one's own true essence and spirit qi, and then continuously accumulating, refining, and increasing the quality of this qi until immortal qi was cultivated, cultivating one's own true essence and spirit qi into immortal qi. Body and qi combined, soul and qi combined, and the entire person became immortal qi. Naturally, one would become an immortal. Immortal qi? I have plenty of it. Liu smiled and waved his hand. Chaos flowed. Yin and yang evolved, and black and yellow were born. 3 streams of immortal qi surged and revolved, and strange phenomena appeared. Chapter 299. All right, it's useless. Liu waved his hand and retrieved the 3 strands of immortal qi. He smiled and shook his head. He could mobilize the power of the 3 energies of the green copper immortal hull. He could control the 3 energies at will. However, this was only an external object. It was not his own power. There's no such thing as instant success in cultivation. I can't directly absorb the 3 strands of green bronze immortal palace. Even if my divine body is big, it will explode. The power in the system store wouldn't directly harm Liu, but if Liu swallowed the 3 strands of green bronze immortal palace, he would die from overeating. Although I can't directly absorb them, with a clear goal, it's easy to deduce the process from the results. Moreover, I have the divine essence-fused light, which includes the 5 elements, as a reference. Liu smiled and nodded. Yin and yang are born from chaos, and Xianwang is born from yin and yang. Xianwang separates the 5 elements and gives birth to all living things. Therefore, the path of qi cultivation is very clear. Liu had already confirmed his own path of qi cultivation. With the divine essence-fused light as the foundation, he would condense the 5 elements into Xianwang qi, then Xianwang qi into yin and yin and yang into chaos. This technique, connate 5-colored divine light? Liu thought of certain old peacock and laughed out loud. My qi cultivation path will eventually turn into chaos. Naturally, it's not some connate 5-color divine light. Although it's a little interesting in the early stages, once I master Xianhuang qi, it's completely different. Liu touched his chin and shook his head with a smile. System, with the divine essence-fused light as the foundation, the 5 elements into Xianhuang into yin and yin and yang into chaos as the goal. Deduce a qi cultivation technique. Insufficient energy. Unable to deduce future cultivation techniques for Xianwang qi. The system's cold voice poured a bucket of cold water on Liu. Liu was stunned. Insufficient energy? He hadn't heard such a notification in a long time. ever since he had obtained his first bucket of gold. When had Li Yu ever run out of energy? Now, the crocodile ancestor that had been his energy source was swallowed by Li Yu. The ancient world, heavenly tomb, and the eternal kingdom formed the eternal immortal abode together. Although the energy in the ancient world of heavenly tombs had been extracted and turned into system energy, the energy in the ancient world of heavenly tombs had been absorbed. However, this amount of energy was clearly not enough. All right, Li Yu shook his head helplessly. He completely understood the system's prompt. The black and yellow qi turned into yin and yang qi, and the yin and yang qi turned into primal chaos qi. These were all powers above the immortal grade. How much energy was needed to deduce the evolution of the immortal qi? At the very least, Li Yu himself could not estimate how much energy it would take to complete the deduction. It was perfectly normal for the system to say that there was insufficient energy. Then let's settle for the second best. First, he deduced the 5 elements black-yellow cultivation method. If you can cultivate the Xianwang Qi, you can become an immortal. That's enough for now. Li Yu waved his hand and told the system to use this as a target to deduce the cultivation method. Li Yu's eyebrows twitched as he ferociously consumed a large chunk of his energy bar. This energy-consuming deduction task was finally completed. A Qi refinement cultivation method, from the beginning of Qi refinement all the way to immortal ascension, appeared in Li Yu's mind. It works. The cultivation method circulated in his soul. Li Yu's immense soul power continued to deduce and calculate, analyzing and understanding this Qi refinement cultivation method. After the interpretation, Li Yu smiled in satisfaction. The Xianwang Qi is the origin of all living things. It is the origin of all matter. It is also the origin of the 5 elements Qi. Condensing the 5 elements and returning to the origin can indeed cultivate the Xianwang Qi. This cultivation method led directly to immortal ascension. It was a completely smooth path to the great Tao. I still have to give this cultivation method a name. Li Yu stroked his chin and smiled. What name should I give it? Dragon Pillar's ice is called Taichu Motetsu. I'll borrow the name Absolute Beginning and call it the Absolute Beginning Mystic Qi Scripture. In the future, I'll get a copy of the Heavenly Book of Emperor Yu. This Absolute Beginning Mystic Qi Scripture is one of the chapters in the Heavenly Book of Emperor Yu. The cultivation method was out, but Li Yu did not plan to cultivate it immediately. Cultivating was not a child's play. Naturally, he had to study it carefully. Only by being absolutely sure could he cultivate it. In the following time, Li Yu immersed himself in comprehending this cultivation method. Yu Country, 7 Mysteries Sect. It had been a month since Li Feiyu obtained the Furnace of Fortune. Li Feiyu, whose strength had skyrocketed, fought all 28 cities around the immortal Dawn Mountain with a long saber. He was ferocious and awe-inspiring. It was difficult for him to meet a worthy opponent. However, this title was meaningless. Li Feiyu's thoughts were not on it. Senior creation, can I cultivate to immortality? In the 7 Mysteries Sect's encampment, Li Feiyu sat in his room and looked at the Fortune True Spirit in front of him. Kid, if you want to embark on the path of cultivation, you must have spiritual roots. The Fortune True Spirit, with a long beard and a sage-like demeanor, stroked his beard with one hand and the other hand behind his back. He began to deceive Li Feiyu again. Spiritual roots. What's that? Li Feiyu looked at the Fortune True Spirit in confusion and asked nervously, I have spiritual roots. In the past month, Li Feiyu had witnessed the magic of the Fortune True Spirit. Whether it was a treasured saber or a healing elixir, he could create anything he wanted. He was simply omnipotent. Li Feiyu had no doubts about the Fortune True Spirit's immortal weapon title. Let's put it this way. Spiritual roots are the aptitude for cultivation. Only those with spiritual roots can cultivate. Those without spiritual roots can't enter the door of cultivation. The Fortune True Spirit smiled and looked at Li Feiyu. Unfortunately, you don't have spiritual roots. Li Feiyu heard this and felt very depressed. He looked up at the fortune true spirit and suddenly saw the fortune true spirit's half-smile. Li Feiyu suddenly felt a sense of surprise. You? Could it be that you can even create this spiritual root? Li Feiyu was surprised and happy. He looked at the fortune true spirit with a hopeful face. Then, can you create a spiritual root for me? Of course you have to have the materials. The fortune true spirit glared at Li Feiyu. I am the furnace of fortune, not the furnace of creation. How can I create something out of nothing? Of course you have to have the materials to create a spiritual root. Materials? Yes, of course you have to have the materials. Li Feiyu nodded and looked at the fortune true spirit eagerly. Please give me your orders. What materials do you need? I will get them for you immediately. To create a spiritual root, of course you can only use spiritual roots as materials. Spiritual roots as materials? Then, how can I get spiritual roots as materials? The path of cultivation was right in front of him. Li Feiyu naturally didn't want to be blocked outside the door. He was anxious, and his voice became a little faster. Kill a cultivator and use his spiritual root as materials. This old man can create a spiritual root for you. The fortune true spirit chuckled. Kid, don't think that this is easy. In the entire human world, except for this old man, no one else has the ability to create a spiritual root. Kill a cultivator? This is a little difficult. Li Feiyu rubbed the handle of his saber and frowned slightly. What's so difficult about it? You don't have to find a cultivator with a high cultivation. With this old man's help, won't a mere chi refinement cultivator be killed with one slash? Thank you, Senior Fortune True Spirit. Thank you, Senior Fortune True Spirit. Hearing the Fortune True Spirit's words, Li Feiyu was overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed to the Fortune True Spirit. Li Feiyu will never forget Senior's kindness. This old man has already recognized you as my master. Of course I will do my best for you. You don't have to be so polite. The Fortune True Spirit chuckled and reported to Li Yu in his mind. His Majesty Emperor Yu, this person has been fooled by me. This kid Li Feiyu is going to bring disaster to the cultivation world soon. Chapter 300. It's actually the rhythm of killing monsters to level up again. When Li Yu heard the report from the creation true spirit, he was speechless again. Well, cultivators were supposed to seize the fortune of heaven and earth and go against the heavens to change their fate, especially the path of cultivation in this world. It was completely plundering along the way, plundering the essence energy of heaven and earth, plundering the treasures of heaven and earth, and using this to achieve oneself. Killing and seizing treasures, this sort of thing, was really too common. In that case, I'll give you a little foundation to start with. Glancing at the resource warehouse, Li Yu waved his hand and sent the foundation establishment cultivator of the giant sword sect directly to the creation true spirit. The cultivation of a foundation establishment cultivator, the knowledge and skills of a foundation establishment cultivator, plus the talismans, spirit stones, and magic artifacts in the storage bag, were enough for the creation true spirit to fool Li Feiyu. As for the future, Li Yu naturally had a way to solve it. Ao Rue, come and see me quickly. This Ao Rue was that 10th level golden flood dragon. After getting the dragon race out, Li Yu naturally had to give them a name. Thus, with a wave of his hand, he gave all the dragons the surname Ao. After the 10th level late-stage nascent soul golden flood dragon transformed into a dragon, its cultivation realm did not increase much. However, the golden flood dragon transformed into a true dragon's body and had the innate ability of a true dragon. Its strength soared and was not much weaker than a soul formation cultivator. It was the only subordinate Li you could take out at the moment. Ao Rue pays respects to His Majesty Emperor Yu. In a moment, a golden dragon more than 3,000 feet long rushed into the main hall and bowed deeply in front of Li Yu. The demons of this world could already transform at the nascent soul stage. Ao Rue, who was originally at the late-stage nascent soul stage, could already transform into a human form. However, after obtaining the true dragon body, the excitement in Ao Rue's heart had not passed, and he had always been in the form of a true dragon. Get up. Liu waved his hand and motioned for Ao Rue to get up. He reached out and took out a jade stone. With a casual touch, it turned into a jade slip. After entering a message into the jade slip, Liu threw the jade slip to Ao Rue. Ao Rue, make a trip to Stellar Sky City's Star Palace and hand this jade slip to the Star Palace Master. If he asks you if there's anything I'm interested in, just tell him that I've been interested in miscellaneous cultivation for the past few days. Liu smiled and waved at Ao Rue. Go. Come back quickly. Yes. Ao Rue put away the jade slip, bowed to Liu, and then took his leave. A huge golden dragon broke out of the water and soared into the sky, rushing in the direction of Stellar Sky City. Stellar Sky City. As soon as His Majesty Emperor Yu gave the order, the entire scattered star ocean regained its former prosperity. As one of the top forces in the scattered star seas, Stellar Sky City, where the Star Palace was located, was even more prosperous. There was an endless stream of people on the ground, streaks of light in the sky, and ships on the surface of the sea. The entire Stellar Sky City was bustling and prosperous. In particular, a few days ago, the Star Palace Master and his wife, the two saints of the Heavenly Star, who had been in seclusion for a long time, appeared together, giving the entire Stellar Sky City a sense of reassurance. Some of the rumors that the two saints of the Heavenly Star had already perished instantly vanished. Some of the restless forces also went into hiding again, not daring to show themselves. Roar! A resounding dragon's roar reverberated through the clouds. Wind and thunder surged, and clouds churned as a huge golden dragon broke through the sky, rushing in the direction of Stellar Sky City. Dragon. True dragon. What's going on? Why is a true dragon coming to Stellar Sky City? Damn it. Could it be that the Star Palace has offended the Star Sea Dragon Palace? It's over. It's over. When a true dragon is enraged, rivers of blood will flow. The appearance of this golden dragon caused the entire Stellar Sky City to be in a state of chaos. Countless cultivators in Stellar Sky City were instantly in a state of panic. Your Excellency, true dragon, what brings you to Stellar Sky City? A five-colored light flashed, and the Star Palace Master and his wife flew into the air to meet the golden dragon. This aura, is it already at the soul formation stage? Sensing the vast and boundless power from the golden dragon, the Star Palace Master and his wife felt their scalps tingle. A true dragon at the soul formation stage could easily wipe out the entire Star Palace. They hoped that nothing bad had happened. Although they had met His Majesty Emperor Yu, the dragon god, the two of them had no idea what the dragon race's temper was like. Now that they saw the golden dragon coming, although they braced themselves to meet it, they were very nervous. You are the Star Palace Masters? Ao Rue opened his huge golden dragon eyes and glanced at the two of them. He nodded. Looking at you, you should be the Star Palace Masters. Yes, it's us. The middle-aged man cupped his hands toward the golden dragon. I am Ling Tianlei, and this is my wife, Wen Qing. Being the Star Palace Masters is just a compliment. Don't take it seriously. We've made a fool of ourselves. It's good that it's the two of you. Ao Rue nodded and waved his dragon claw. A jade slip flew out and landed in the hands of Ling Tianlei, the Star Palace Master. My name is Ao Rue. On the orders of His Majesty Emperor Yu, I give this to you. His Majesty Emperor Yu? Ling Tianlei was shocked. He quickly released his divine sense and read the information in the jade slip. 5 elements, magnetism, annihilation, divine light. Seeing the information in the jade slip, Ling Tianlei was dumbfounded. He didn't come back to his senses for a long time. Tianlei, what's wrong? What did His Majesty Emperor Yu say? Seeing her husband's dumbfounded expression, Wen Qing hurriedly asked with concern. Phew. Ling Tianlei let out a long breath and handed the jade slip to Wen Qing. See for yourself. His Majesty Emperor Yu is really amazing. As expected of the Dragon Monarch, your magical powers are truly boundless. Hiss, when Qing took the jade slip in confusion. After reading the information, she was so shocked that she couldn't speak for a long time. May I ask, Your Excellency Ao Rei, if His Majesty Emperor Yu is interested in anything? The human realm is poor and can't offer any good gifts. However, we need to express our gratitude to His Majesty Emperor Yu. After a while, Ling Tianlei came back to his senses and bowed to Ao Rui. He blushed and asked. His Majesty Emperor Yu was the dragon god. He was like an immortal. He wouldn't be interested in the ordinary things in the human realm. However, His Majesty Emperor Yu had given him such a big gift. It wouldn't be right if he didn't return the favor. Yes, Ao Rui nodded. His Majesty Emperor Yu is so kind that he won't care about your gifts. Since you are interested, I don't mind telling you. His Majesty Emperor Yu is from the immortal realm. He has become interested in the miscellaneous cultivation students in the human realm. Miscellaneous cultivation students in the human realm? I understand. Ling Tianlei and his wife were stunned for a moment. Then they felt relieved. The dragon god was from the immortal realm. He must have never seen such low-level alchemy, equipment forging, talisman amulet, and so on. It was normal for him to be curious and interested. Thank you for your guidance, Your Excellency Ao Rui. Ling Tianlei and his wife bowed to Ao Rui and thanked him solemnly. Since that's the case, you can prepare yourselves. I'll take my leave now. Ao Rui nodded. His huge dragon body soared into the sky, riding on clouds and mist. He flew in the air and disappeared in a moment. His Majesty Emperor Yu, he saw that we lost the essence-fused mountain and our strength was reduced. He actually gave us such a great gift. His Majesty, the Dragon Monarch, is truly virtuous and kind. Ling Tianlei and his wife looked at the direction of the Dragon Palace from afar and sighed with emotion. Hee, the bait has been released. In the Dragon Palace, His Majesty Emperor Yu stroked his chin and chuckled. I wonder when the big fish will take the bait? I've used up all my chapters. I can only update normally today. 8 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 18 o'clock. The author is working hard to write. Chapter 301. The Star-Lord couple is still very useful. Liu smiled. As the overlords of the scattered star seas, both their strength and influence were extraordinary. They were worth making use of. The bait had been cast. Now he just had to wait for the big fish to take the bait. It's just that the new host has to speed up his progress. He hasn't even embarked on the path of cultivation yet. It's too slow. Liu was a little dissatisfied. He sent a message to the creation true spirit, asking him to quickly persuade Li Feiyu to start cultivating. Under Li Yu's command, the new host Li Feiyu's cultivation path had already begun. Senior creation, where are we going? Under the creation true spirit's persuasion, Li Feiyu left the Seven Mysteries sect and the Mirror Province. It took him more than 10 days to arrive at Little South Mountain in the Lan Province. Where are we going? Of course we're going to find a cultivator. The true spirit of creation replied grumpily. Find a cultivator? Didn't you say there were cultivators in the Mirror Province? Why are we here? Li Feiyu was very puzzled by the creation true spirit's actions. There are few cultivation families in the Mirror Province. But families? Don't you understand what families mean? Families? I see. Li Feiyu, who had been in the Jianghu, naturally understood what the creation true spirit meant. Families naturally meant that if you beat up the younger ones, the older ones would come. Kill one, and a group would come. With his current ability, there was no way he could stir up such a hornet's nest. Then, the cultivators here are not families? Then what are they? Sect? Aren't they even more untouchable? If he couldn't afford to offend a family, then a sect was even more untouchable. Little South Mountain is a marketplace for rogue cultivators. A rogue cultivator is naturally a loner, without a sect or sect. Oh, I see. Li Feiyu nodded. Rogue cultivators were loose cultivators in the Jianghu. Those who had no background were the least troublesome to kill. Boy, do you like to use sabers? At this time, the creation true spirit asked in Li Feiyu's mind. Oh, I only learned saber techniques, so I can only practice sabers. It's not that I only like sabers. Li Feiyu did not know what the creation true spirit meant, so he could only answer truthfully. That's great. Huh. The cultivation world has only heard of flying swords, flying daggers, and whatnot sound like mortal hidden weapons. They don't sound imposing at all. The fortune true spirit chuckled. Kid, take out your saber. This old man will refine it for you. Otherwise, you won't even be able to kill a chi condensation cultivator. Huh. Li Feiyu was taken aback. Senior creation, are you saying that you want me to kill a cultivator? Are you not going to make a move? This old man is the furnace of good fortune. My ability is to create all things. Killing people, this old man isn't too good at it. The true spirit of creation laughed dryly, seemingly a little embarrassed. Oh, Li Feiyu instantly understood. Even if the furnace of good fortune was an immortal artifact with a frightening background, it was still a toy that the Celestial Emperor had refined for a child. How could you expect a child's toy to kill someone? Li Feiyu took a deep breath and gripped the hilt of his saber tightly. You want to kill a cultivator yourself? Humph. Aren't cultivators human too? I don't believe that I can't kill him. What are you dawdling for? Give me the saber. I'll refine it for you. Otherwise, this little ability of yours is far from enough. Sorry to trouble you, senior. Li Feiyu took the saber from his waist and released the furnace of good fortune with a wave of his hand. He threw the saber into the furnace of good fortune. The furnace of good fortune vibrated, and endless scenes of creation flowed. In a moment, a 4-foot-long saber with a sheath flew out of the furnace and landed in Li Feiyu's hands. Good sword, good sword. Such a sharp treasured sword can cut through iron like mud. Li Feiyu took the saber and unsheathed it. He felt a sharp aura rush to his forehead, causing his heart to turn cold. He couldn't help but praise it. This is called a good sword? It's at most a high-grade Dharma artifact. However, in the hands of a chi condensation cultivator, it's already a rare treasure. The true spirit of good fortune raised his head proudly with an expression that said, I'm so awesome. This high-grade Dharma artifact was naturally not refined by Li Feiyu's saber. It was modified from the giant flying sword of the Giant Sword Sex Foundation Establishment Cultivator. Keep the saber, we're going. The true spirit of good fortune called out to Li Feiyu and turned into light spots before returning to Li Feiyu's body. Okay. Li Feiyu sheathed the saber and rushed to the north of Little South Mountain, according to the true spirit of good fortune's instructions. After crossing mountains and ridges, Li Feiyu arrived at the bottom of a hill shrouded in fog after spending more than an hour. Senior good fortune, is this the place? Li Feiyu looked in the direction of the fog and frowned slightly. He couldn't see anything at all. Kid, be careful. Someone's coming. At this time, Li Feiyu suddenly heard the true spirit of good fortune's warning. His heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly pressed the hilt of his sword and became alert. Gagaga! A mournful ghost howl sounded, and a figure shrouded in black robes tore through the air with a black chi. A series of ghostly wails and wolf howls could be heard from the churning black chi, looking extremely evil. The black-robed figure seemed like he was about to enter the fog when he suddenly saw the nervous Li Feiyu at the bottom of the hill and stopped in shock. A mortal actually came to the entrance of the market of Little South Mountain. Yes, his body is strong and his blood chi is abundant. My mystic in-corpse refinement technique has reached greater mastery, and it's just right to refine a living corpse. The black-robed cultivator cackled strangely and reached out to grab Li Feiyu. Instantly, black chi churned and ghostly wails and wolf howls filled the air with a nauseating stench. Cultivators are indeed lawless. They don't even need a reason to kill. They can kill as they please. Li Feiyu took a deep breath at the sight of the ghostly claw. Do you think I'm easy to bully? Go to hell. His sword was unsheathed with a clang. Kill! Li Feiyu roared and swung his sword, slashing down at the black-robed cultivator as though he was wielding a saber. Oomph! You overestimate yourself. This is... The black-robed cultivator was initially dismissive of Li Feiyu's resistance. Suddenly, he realized that a white sword beam that was more than 100 feet long was shot out from the blade of Li Feiyu's sword. The incomparably sharp sword beam slashed down and destroyed the ghostly claw before slashing heavily at the black-robed cultivator. With that slash, the black-robed cultivator was split into two from head to toe and fell to the ground dead. Sword beam? I can actually use sword beam? Since when did my martial arts become so powerful? Li Feiyu was surprised and delighted when he saw the white sword beam on the blade that had yet to fade. At the same time, he was stunned. Sword beam, my ass. That's the sharp metal chi of the 5 elements. You're using the superior grade dermic weapon that I refined as a saber? Seriously? The creation true spirit pursed his lips and roared at Li Feiyu. What are you waiting for? Hurry and collect that person's corpse. Oh. Li Feiyu snapped back to his senses and smiled awkwardly. He hurried to the corpse of the black-robed cultivator and waved his hand, collecting the corpse into the furnace of creation. Senior, are there enough materials? Can you cultivate a spirit root? Li Feiyu asked the creation true spirit anxiously. Enough. Enough. Kid, stop dawdling. Hurry and leave. There will definitely be people coming to take a look after the commotion earlier on. Are you still going to stay here and wait for others to kill you and take your treasures? Yes. Yes. Li Feiyu was shocked. He hurriedly kept his sword and ran. Chapter 302. As expected, someone soon arrived. A few streams of light rushed out of the fog and scanned the surroundings for a while before landing at the place where the black-robed man died. Mysterious Yin Shi. Is this the mysterious Yin Old Devil? Isn't he at the 5th level of Qi refinement? He was killed just like that? There are sword marks on the ground. This sharp metal sword Qi is so pure. Could it be a cultivator from a sect? In the state of Yu, only the giant sword sect is famous for its sword Qi. The mysterious Yin Old Devil provoked the giant sword sect? Let's go. Let's go. The giant sword sect is not something we rogue cultivators can afford to offend. In a moment, the cultivators who came to investigate turned and left, as if they were afraid of getting into trouble. Behind the hill, Li Feiyu was lying on the ground. After the cultivators left, he crawled up with a face full of fear. Fortunately, I dodged quickly. If I was blocked by these people, I would be dead for sure. Although Li Feiyu had killed a cultivator with a sword, he was not arrogant enough to think that he was invincible. With his current mortal body, he would definitely die without a trace if he was hit by a spell. Senior creation, didn't you say that cultivators have sharp senses? Why didn't they discover me when I was so close? With this old man covering your aura, if these Qi refinement cultivators could discover you, then this old man might as well kill himself. This old man is an immortal tool. Immortal tool, do you understand? As soon as Li Feiyu asked, the true spirit of creation immediately roared angrily. All right. You are an immortal tool. You are invincible. Li Feiyu had figured out the creation true spirit's temper during this period of time. He knew that this old man loved face, loved to show off, and loved to listen to flattery. So he quickly flattered him. Kid, you are quite knowledgeable. The creation true spirit was incomparably pleased and nodded with a smile. Senior creation, when do you think the spirit root will be refined? Li Feiyu naturally wanted to obtain the spirit root as soon as possible and step on the path of cultivation. With the materials, it will be just a matter of waving your hand. The creation true spirit proudly raised his head. Kid, what spirit root do you want? What spirit root? That? Li Feiyu rubbed his head. Senior, I don't understand this thing. Why don't you explain it to me? That's fine. The true spirit of creation nodded. Spiritual roots are divided into 5 elements. According to the saying of the mortal realm, spiritual roots of a single element are called celestial spiritual roots. Spiritual roots that have mutated from the fusion of 2 or 3 elements, such as ice and thunder, are called mutated spiritual roots. They're also gifted and gifted. A spiritual root with 2 or 3 attributes that can't be fused and mutated is called a true spiritual root. Cultivation aptitude is just average. A spiritual root with 4 or 5 attributes is called a pseudo-spiritual root. This kind of spiritual root is just a beginner's spiritual root. The creation. Li Feiyu was overjoyed to hear the creation true spirit's words. If he could have the celestial spiritual root, he would be the pride of the heavens and a peerless talent. Since when had Li Feiyu received such treatment? His martial arts aptitude was low, and he could only risk his life. Now, he had the chance to become a peerless talent? All right, with the density of spirit chi in the human world, the creation true spirit root is indeed more convenient for cultivation. When I reach the spiritual realm, I can just refine another spirit root when I need it. The creation true spirit nodded with a smile. Senior, it seems that the creation true spirit root is useless in the spiritual realm. Li Feiyu had to be clear about this matter that concerned his future. Yes, when I reach the spiritual realm, I need all 5 elements to reach the return to void stage. But it doesn't matter. I can just refine another spirit root when I need it. The creation true spirit waved his hand nonchalantly. All right. Thank you, Senior. Li Feiyu naturally trusted the ability of the creation true spirit. Then I'll refine a creation true spirit root for you. The creation true spirit looked at Li Feiyu and smiled. You're suitable for the path of a sword cultivator. The creation true spirit root is the most suitable for a sword cultivator. Then I'll give you a creation true spirit root of the creation true spirit root. Endless scenes of creation appeared in the creation furnace. A moment later, a platinum light flew out of the furnace and pierced into Li Feiyu's glabella. Endless sharp metal energy spread throughout his body. Ugh! Li Feiyu let out a muffled groan. He felt as if his entire body was being cut by knives and axes and bitten by ants. Compared to overdrawing his life force, the pain of his bone marrow drying up was even more intense. This is a rebirth. It'll definitely hurt. Haven't you practiced martial arts before? Calm your mind and guard your dantian. Just bear with it. The creation true spirit reminded him with a smile. I'm fine. Li Feiyu's mouth twitched from the pain, but he still grinned. I've been in pain for a few years. I'm not afraid of pain. Li Feiyu clenched his fists tightly and his bones cracked. He held on with all his might and straightened his back. After an hour, the pain finally disappeared. Phew! Li Feiyu let out a long sigh. Suddenly, he realized that there was a sharp aura in the space around him. It seemed to be absorbed by his body as he breathed. Is this the 5 elements metal chi? The celestial spiritual root is really powerful. It can absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth without any cultivation method. Li Feiyu laughed and was very happy. I've finally become a peerless talent. Yes, it's indeed the celestial spiritual root. The creation true spirit glanced at Li Feiyu and nodded. Boy, the next problem is cultivation. Do you plan to join a sect? Or do you want to be a rogue cultivator? Sect? Rogue cultivator? Li Feiyu frowned and thought for a moment. He smiled and said, Senior, although I don't know what a cultivator sect is like, I've been in the 7 Mysteries sect. If I join a sect, I'll definitely have no freedom. I'd better do it alone. It's up to you. The creation true spirit waved his hand indifferently. Since you plan to do it alone, you can stay in the rogue cultivator market on Little South Mountain for a while. With that, the creation true spirit waved his hand and a spiritual light fell into Li Feiyu's mind. The black-robed cultivator just now had a cultivation method. I don't know where he got it from, but it's just right for you. Of course, this cultivation method was not snatched by the black-robed cultivator. After the self-seeking foundation establishment cultivator of the giant sword sect fell into Li Yu's hands, he naturally had all his value squeezed out. According to the cultivation method of the giant sword sect cultivator, Li Yu reduced it and improved the shortcomings of the impure sword qi. He then sent it over as a novice skill. Li Yu even stored a pool of Qi Song Z's Great Void sword qi. Naturally, his understanding of sword cultivation was very thorough. After some improvement and deduction, this cultivation method was very impressive. Chang'ing's sword technique? Li Feiyu saw the cultivation method in his mind and was overjoyed. Thank you, Senior. Thank you, Senior. With the spirit root, the cultivation method, and a magic weapon, Li Feiyu's path of scourging the cultivation world had begun. Chapter 303. Li Feiyu won't be of any use for now. Li Yu shook his head after hearing the creation True Spirits report. He cut off the system connection and turned to look in the direction of the scattered star seas. The Heavenly Star, two sages, should be taking the bait now, right? Heavenly Star City. The Heavenly Star, two sages looked at the storage bag on the table and nodded with a smile. All the sect, islands, and countless cultivators in the scattered star seas have a vast amount of knowledge on pill refinement and tool refinement. Our subordinates have done their best to collect so much in just 10 days. Ling Tianlei put away the storage bag and looked at his wife, Wen Qing. Let's go. Let's go and pay a visit to His Majesty Emperor Yu. Okay. Wen Qing nodded, but there was a hint of helplessness between her brows. His Majesty Emperor Yu is only interested in these things out of curiosity. I wonder if His Majesty Emperor Yu will be able to give us some pointers on cultivation? Yeah. The divine essence-fused light requires a spirit root with all 5 elements to reach the soul formation stage. We with heavenly spirit roots can't reach the soul formation stage. This is ridiculous. Ling Tianlei's eyes were filled with anger. A spirit root with all 5 elements won't be able to reach the foundation establishment stage, even if we cultivate for a lifetime. How can we reach the late-stage nascent soul stage with this kind of talent? How can we reach the soul formation stage? This is ridiculous. The divine essence-fused light is an ancient cultivation method. It's very likely that the essence qi of heaven and earth in ancient times was denser than now. Wen Qing sighed and shook her head. I don't know if His Majesty Emperor Yu has a solution. Even if he does, he might not be able to give us pointers. Sigh, don't think so much. Let's go see His Majesty Emperor Yu first. With that, the two stepped into the teleportation array. With a flash of light, they were teleported to the Star Palace's stronghold in the outer seas. After exiting the teleportation array, the two of them flew toward the Dragon Palace. Roar! Not long after they entered the outer sea, huge waves surged on the surface of the sea. An azure dragon that was 300 meters long and covered in azure scales soared into the sky with a long roar, blocking the two of them. Human cultivators, the forbidden grounds of the Dragon Palace are in front of you. Retreat quickly, or you will be killed without mercy. The azure dragon glared at the two of them and scolded loudly. Your Excellency, True Dragon, we have the honor of meeting His Majesty Emperor Yu. We are here to pay our respects to His Majesty Emperor Yu. Ling Tianlei took out the jade slip that Ao Rui gave him. The scroll that Liu gave him contained a wisp of dragon qi. Azure Dragon sensed it as soon as Ling Tianlei took it out. So, you're here to see His Majesty? Azure Dragon nodded. His Majesty is in the Dragon Palace. You can go and pay your respects. With that, the Azure Dragon turned around and dived back into the sea. Ling Tianlei and his wife continued to move forward. They were stopped several times along the way. No dragons stopped them until he held the jade slip in his hand. The true dragons only popped their heads out of the water, glanced at the two of them, and dived back into the sea. It's so heavily guarded. Ling Tianlei and his wife looked at each other and were shocked. They became more solemn and respectful. Not long after, the two of them met the golden dragon Ao Rui near the Dragon Palace. Under Ao Rui's lead, the two of them swam through the water and arrive at the Dragon Palace in a short while. This is the Dragon Palace? It's indeed an immortal place. In front of the two of them was a palace that looked like a small city. The entire palace was exquisite and gorgeous. It was surrounded by colorful clouds and looked otherworldly. His Majesty is in the main hall. After entering the Dragon Palace, Ao Rue pointed at the majestic main hall in front of them and signaled to the two of them. Then, he stood at the entrance of the main hall. "Thank you." Ling Tianlei cupped his hands and thanked Ao Rue. Then, he stepped into the main hall of the Dragon Palace. After entering the main hall, the two of them realized that the main hall seemed to have been enhanced with a grotto heaven technique. The entire hall was extraordinarily spacious. At the top of the hall, a young man in white with a golden crown on his head sat there with a faint smile on his face. His aura was vast and boundless like the sea of stars. It's His Majesty Emperor Yu indeed. After seeing Li Yu's face, Ling Tianlei and his wife immediately recognized that he was the senior who had helped them out of the Origin Magnet Mountain. "Greetings to His Majesty Emperor Yu." Seeing Li Yu, Ling Tianlei and his wife hurriedly bowed to him respectfully. "Please rise." Li Yu smiled and waved his hand. A gentle yet irresistible force helped the two of them up. "His Majesty Emperor Yu." Ling Tianlei took out his storage bag and presented it to Li Yu with both hands. "Your Majesty, we are unable to repay your kindness. We heard that Your Majesty was curious about cultivation, so we collected some for you. Please accept them." "Hee. Thank you for your kindness." Li Yu waved his hand and took the storage bag over. He then kept it in the resource vault. Looking at the two of them, Li Yu smiled and said, "After I arrived, I found the cultivation of cultivation in the mortal realm interesting. It's really interesting to disguise a penny as a few petals to spend." "Ah, hee." Hearing Li Yu's words, Ling Tianlei and his wife could only laugh helplessly. They felt bitter in their hearts. Which rich person would disguise a penny as a few petals to spend? How could the mortal realm compare to the upper realm? The spiritual qi in the mortal realm is thin. It's commendable that you came up with these methods to save spiritual qi. Li Yu nodded and praised. He smiled and said, "So I'm also interested in these things. It's really thoughtful of you to collect these cultivation techniques." We wouldn't dare. We wouldn't dare." Ling Tianlei quickly replied. "His Majesty Emperor Yu's kindness is something we can't repay. We can only use these to express our gratitude." "Your Majesty." At this moment, Wen Qing suddenly knelt down in front of Li Yu and kowtowed heavily. "Your Majesty, please be merciful. Please save our lives. Your Majesty, please be merciful." Seeing his wife kneel down, Ling Tianlei quickly followed suit. "Please rise. Please rise." The fish had taken a bait. Li Yu laughed in his heart. He waved his hand and helped the two of them up, pretending to be confused. "Both of you are not sick. According to my subordinate's report, there are no strong enemies in the scattered star ocean that could harm you." "Why do you say so?" "Your Majesty." Ling Tianlei looked at Li Yu bitterly and said, "Your Majesty, there are some problems with the cultivation method that my wife and I are practicing. We have heavenly spiritual roots, but the divine essence-fused light requires spiritual roots of 5 elements to reach the divine transformation realm." At this point, Ling Tianlei knelt down again and kowtowed continuously. "Our lives are coming to an end. If we can't reach the divine transformation realm, our lives will be at stake. Your Majesty, please be merciful. Your Majesty, please show us the way." "I see." Li Yu seemed to be very surprised. The divine essence-fused light is a cultivation technique of 5 elements. It requires all 5 elements to be cultivated. "Oh, the spiritual qi in the mortal realm is thin, so we can't cultivate it with spiritual roots of 5 elements." At this point, Li Yu laughed and said, "It's okay. It's okay. It's very simple. If we don't have spiritual roots of 5 elements, we could just gather all 5 elements." "Eh, Your Majesty, you mean we can still be saved? There's a way." Hearing Li Yu's words, Ling Tianlei and his wife were both surprised and overjoyed. They knelt down and said, "Your Majesty, please be merciful. Your Majesty, please be merciful." The two of them had spent so much effort and thought of all sorts of ways to solve this problem, but to no avail. But to His Majesty Yu Huang, it was a simple matter. His Majesty Emperor Yu was indeed resourceful. Ling Tianlei and his wife kept kowtowing with mixed feelings. Chapter 304. That's not necessary. Liu waved his hand and helped the two heavenly star saints up. He said with a smile, "It's very common in the spiritual realm and the immortal realm to complete the 5 elements. It's not difficult." Liu knocked on the table in front of him and looked at Ling Tianlei and his wife with a smile. "Your cultivation art is special. You need all 5 elements to reach the soul formation stage. In fact, no matter what cultivation art you cultivate, you need all 5 elements to reach the void return level." "I see." Ling Tianlei and his wife finally understood the whole story. It wasn't that their cultivation art was wrong, but that the human world didn't have a way to complete the 5 elements. "Fine. You were very considerate of me to give me a gift today. In that case, I'll give you an opportunity." Liu smiled and waved his hand. 2 colorful lights flew out and entered Ling Tianlei and his wife's bodies. Liu had already analyzed the spirit roots in this world. Even the true spirit of creation could create a spirit root for Liu. Naturally, it was easier for Liu. Ling Tianlei and his wife both had heavenly spirit roots of the metal element. Liu directly completed the other 4 elements for them. Ugh! As the spiritual root entered their bodies, Ling Tianlei and his wife felt a sharp pain in their bodies, which made them groan in pain even though they had high cultivations. In order not to embarrass themselves in front of His Majesty Emperor Yu, they had to calm themselves down and endure the pain. Soon, they let out a long sigh of relief. Their faces were full of joy. With the 5 elements completed, the vital, magnetic, true qi in their bodies flowed freely. They didn't feel as jerky as before. The vital, magnetic divine light was just around the corner. Reaching the soul formation stage was just around the corner. "Your Majesty, Your Majesty." The two of them knelt down in front of Liu in ecstasy and kowtowed heavily. They kowtowed sincerely and willingly. It was only natural that they kowtowed. Of course it was natural. Do you think His Majesty Emperor Yu's mark of loyalty is a joke? Do you really think that His Majesty Emperor Yu is really a merciful person who came to save all living beings? After being promoted to the Yang spirit realm, Liu used the way of the soul in the Yang spirit realm to repair the loyalty mark again. Now, the loyalty mark was even more perfect. As a result, the overlords of the chaotic star sea's inner sea, the 2 heavenly star saints of the Star Palace, had fallen into the hands of Liu. The entire scattered star seas, be it humans or demons, were all under Liu's control. After the 2 of you return, continue to collect all kinds of miscellaneous cultivation techniques and cultivation techniques for me. This emperor wants to refer to the various cultivation techniques and create a great Tao true technique. Since they were already his subordinates, Liu naturally did not hold back when ordering them around. Understood. The 2 heavenly star saints bowed and accepted the order. "This is my command token. From now on, you can freely enter and exit the Dragon Palace." With a wave of his hand, 2 purple gold command tokens flew into the hands of the 2 heavenly star saints. Liu waved his hand. "You may leave. Yes, we will take our leave." The 2 heavenly star saints took their leave and hurried back to Heavenly Star City. They hurriedly searched everywhere for His Majesty Emperor Yu. Collecting miscellaneous cultivation techniques was Liu's goal. Collecting cultivation techniques and creating a great Tao true technique was not nonsense. The system had already completed the derivation of the Genesis mystic Qi scripture of Xianwang 5 elements. During this period of time, Liu had also completely comprehended this cultivation technique. However, Liu felt that he still needed to understand more cultivation techniques for reference. He wanted to ensure that nothing went wrong before he dared to truly start cultivating. The system's derivation of the cultivation technique was definitely correct. It could definitely cultivate the Xianwang Qi of the five elements. But what if Liu's idea was wrong? What if the cultivation technique of this world was not to cultivate immortal Qi to become an immortal? This possibility was very low, but it could not be ruled out. Being cautious and moving forward courageously was the way to achieve long-term success. Therefore, by referring to more cultivation techniques and summarizing the rules within, Liu could only cultivate with peace of mind after confirming that this path of cultivating immortal Qi was correct. Of course, with these knowledge techniques, the true spirit of creation was more confident in tricking Li Feiyu. Let's see what Ling Tianlei and his wife have sent over. Liu glanced at the system's repository and gave the system an order. System, extract all the knowledge and skills stored in the jade slips in the storage bag and enter them into the repository. With a sweep of an invisible wave, the system completed the order instantly and entered all the knowledge and skills into the repository. That's pretty comprehensive. Liu gave it a cursory glance and found that all kinds of miscellaneous skills were very complete. There was even a dual cultivation furnace method. System, send a copy to the true spirit of creation. With these things, it is enough for him to fool Li Feiyu. Liu smiled. After Ling Tianlei and his wife send over the cultivation technique, I will send another copy to the true spirit of creation. It will be enough for him to fool Li Feiyu into ascending to the spiritual realm. Since he had given the true spirit of creation a copy of the miscellaneous techniques, Liu certainly wanted one for himself. System, send a copy of these miscellaneous techniques to my mind. With Liu's current divine soul power, it was no problem for him to impart more knowledge and skills. Of course, the knowledge he mastered was much better than completely relying on the system. All kinds of knowledge and skills flowed in his divine soul. The enormous divine soul power was constantly analyzing, sorting, interpreting, classifying all kinds of knowledge and integrating them into the memory of his divine soul. Not bad. Not bad. All kinds of knowledge and skills flowed in his mind. Elixir refining, weapon refining, talisman making, formation, and other miscellaneous techniques from the Qi refining stage to the nascent soul stage were very complete. But is the elixir refining method mainly based on the inner elixir of demonic beasts? Liu smiled and shook his head. In a place like the disordered star sea, there were countless demonic beasts. This could be considered a local elixir refining method. This elixir refining method seems to be similar to the elixir refining method in Xiaofeng's world. After comparing the elixir refining method in Xiaofeng's world with the elixir refining method in the disordered star sea, Liu realized that the principles of both were very similar. In this way, it seems like the heavenly flame and the heavenly cauldron can be put to good use. Liu stretched out his hand and waved. A purplish-black flame surged like a fire dragon and wriggled between Liu's fingers. This was the nihility devouring flame that had merged all the heavenly flames and turned into the imperial flame. There's no hurry to refine the elixir refining method. With a wave of his hand, Liu dispersed the nihility devouring flame. Then, one by one, he comprehended the miscellaneous techniques of talisman making, formation making, weapon refining, spiritual medicine planting, spiritual beast taming, and spiritual insect breeding. Among the 9 esoteric words, the formation esoteric word is the way of formation making, and the alignment esoteric word is the way of talisman making. I can categorize the talisman making and formation making in this world into these 2 esoteric words. The weapon refining method is also very good. Every cultivator needs to make a magical weapon that is suitable for them. This technique was worth studying. Combining the weapon refining methods of several worlds, he could prepare for the creation of emperor weapons in the future. While Liu was studying his gains, Li Feiyu had also gained something. Chapter 305. Fellow Taoist Lee, do you have any talismans for sale today? Fellow Taoist Lee, my Dharma artifact is damaged. Please repair it. Please. Fellow Taoist Lee, this 3-crow grass has 1,000 years of medicinal power. Please refine the elixir. Thank you. Thank you. In the market for itinerant cultivators on Little Nanshan, a large group of people gathered around an inconspicuous stall, fighting to deliver the spirit stones, herbs, and Dharma artifacts in their hands to the young man on the stall. This young man was naturally Li Feiyu. Come on by one. Li Feiyu looked up at the crowd and waved his hand expressionlessly. The talismans are here. Give me the money and I will give you the goods. Elixir refinement and weapon refinement. Please wait a moment. Ever since he obtained the metal spirit root and cultivated the Chang'e sword technique, Li Feiyu quickly reached the entry level of qi refinement with his heavenly spirit root. In just a few days, he was already at the second level of qi refinement. Then, Li Feiyu entered the market of Little Nanshan and changed the appearance of the black-robed cultivator's Dharma artifact. He sold it for spirit stones. Then, he bought some Dharma formulas for elixir refinement, weapon refinement, and talisman crafting from the market and began his career of setting up a stall. With the ability of the furnace of creation, there was no problem with the success rate of elixir refinement, weapon refinement, or talisman crafting. As long as you threw in the materials, it could create anything. In just a few days, Li Feiyu's reputation rose. In terms of elixir refinement, weapon refinement, and talisman crafting, Little Nanshan was second to none. Although they were only low-level elixir crafting, talisman crafting, and Dharma artifacts, it was already very amazing. There were low-level Dharma formulas for elixir refinement, weapon refinement, and talisman crafting. But among itinerant cultivators, only 1 in 10,000 could really master these skills. The main reason was that the success rate of beginners was not high. Practicing these skills consumed too much energy. People who were not from a sect or a large cultivation family could not afford to train them. Now, in a place like Little Nanshan, there was actually an itinerant cultivator who was proficient in elixir refinement, weapon refinement, and talisman crafting. This was simply unheard of. After a day of setting up a stall, Li Feiyu packed up his things and returned to his rented room. In Little Nanshan, there were many rooms rented for itinerant cultivators. It was said that these landlords had connections with several large cultivation families in the Lan province. Therefore, even the lawless rogue cultivators did not dare to provoke them. "Senior, do we have enough spirit stones now?" After entering the room, Li Feiyu closed the door and asked the true spirit of creation. "It's all right. Although they are all low-grade spirit stones, and there aren't many metal spirit stones, they can still be used." The creation true spirit nodded. "Kid, sit down and meditate. Get ready. I will refine all the spirit stones into 5 elemental metal qi and pour it into your body, allowing you to quickly advance your cultivation." "I understand." Li Feiyu's expression turned solemn. He hurriedly sat cross-legged on the ground and concentrated on activating the Chang'e sword technique. Boom! His mind shook violently. As the endless scenes of creation circulated, a massive surge of sharp metal qi surged into Li Feiyu's body. What a powerful spiritual energy! Li Feiyu's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly activated the Chang'e sword technique and continuously absorbed the spiritual energy to improve his cultivation. Compared to swallowing elixirs, this kind of direct injection of pure spiritual energy not only did not have the so-called elixir poison, but also made the spiritual energy purer and easier to absorb and transform. Of course, ordinary people could not afford to use this method. Firstly, the attributes of the spirit stones belong to the 5 elements. Spirit stones that were not compatible with one's own attributes could not be absorbed. Secondly, spirit stones were money. This was burning money. One day and one night, even with Li Feiyu's heavenly spiritual root and the help of the true spirit of creation, it took him a day and a night to completely absorb the spiritual energy. Phew! He spat out a mouthful of turbid air. Like a white rainbow, it rushed out for more than 3 feet before dissipating. Already, LV8 of Qi cultivation, Li Feiyu opened his eyes. A sharp golden light flashed in his eyes. Feeling the surging spiritual energy in his body like a huge lake, Li Feiyu was overjoyed. Yes, is indeed LV8 of Qi cultivation. Not bad. The creation true spirit said indifferently. It seemed that he was still a little dissatisfied. Senior creation, I rushed from LV2 of Qi cultivation to LV8 of Qi cultivation in one night. This speed should be very scary. Li Feiyu straightened his clothes, stood up, and waved his hand. A sword light whistled, and a 4-foot-long sword fell into his hand. Now that I've reached LV8 of Qi cultivation, it's time to refine this sword. Li Feiyu smiled and nodded. He drove the metal attribute spiritual energy in his body and poured it into the long sword. Buzz! The long sword vibrated and flew out of his hand, floating in front of Li Feiyu. 5 elements metal, Chongqing sword Qi, refined for me. He made a gesture with his fingers. The metal attribute spiritual energy turned into Chongqing sword Qi and rushed into the long sword. Clang! A sword sound was heard. Li Feiyu found that there was a clear and deep connection between himself and this long sword. With a shift of his mind and the guidance of his spiritual power, the 4-foot-long sword turned into a white gold sword light, whistling and circling around Li Feiyu. Not bad. I'm now able to fly on the sword. Li Feiyu waved his hand and put away the long sword. He held the sword in his hand and stroked the sword spine. He was overjoyed, flying in the sky and burrowing into the ground. This is what an immortal should be like. Puffed. You just started. The creation true spirit curled his lips and poured cold water on Li Feiyu. Ha! Of course. Li Feiyu smiled and nodded. My ability is still very weak, but as long as I keep improving, I will definitely become a real immortal. Then you have to speed up. There's no potential in Little South Mountain. Boy, get ready to change places. Yes, this place is really not good. Li Feiyu nodded. After all, Little South Mountain was just a gathering place for beginner rogue cultivators. Even if there were good things, they could not be sold at a high price. There was nothing to gain. This sword is still an upper-grade magic weapon. I haven't given it a name since it was given to me. Li Feiyu shook his wrist and sheathed the sword. He hung the long sword on his waist. I'm practicing Chongqing sword technique. West Pole Chongqing, Tai Bai Star. This sword will be called Tai Bai. Don't. Before Li Feiyu could finish his words, he was interrupted by the creation true spirit. The creation true spirit wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. Boy, if you don't want to die, don't give it a name like Tai Bai. What's wrong? This name? Li Feiyu was stunned. He did not understand what was taboo about the name Tai Bai. His Majesty Emperor Yu's incarnation, was also called Tai Bai. If you dare to give this sword this name, will a bolt of lightning fall from the sky and turn you into ashes? Li Feiyu shrunk his neck and quickly changed his words. Yes, this sword will be called Chongqing. This should be fine, right? This is fine. The creation true spirit nodded and waved at Li Feiyu. Let's go and get ready to leave Little South Mountain. Also, when you go out, you have to be careful. Many people will be jealous of your gains these days. Jealous? Li Feiyu pressed the hilt of the sword on his waist. That depends on how many heads they have to cut off. Chapter 306. Li Feiyu has already reached the 8th level of Qi training. When Li Yu heard the report from the creation true spirit, he smiled and nodded. It seems that the Chongqing sword Qi that I created is really feasible. Let him continue to practice it. It's a good opportunity for me to verify the method of cultivation. However, Li Yu had just created the Chongqing sword technique casually and had only deduced the level of Qi training and foundation establishment. Continue to deduce it for him. Li Yu could use it to verify whether the concept of primordial Qi was correct and whether one could really become an immortal by cultivating divine Qi. The enormous power of the divine soul circulated in Li Yu's mind as the method of cultivation of the Chongqing sword technique circulated in his mind. From gathering the gold qi of the 5 elements, condensing the Chang'e sword qi, turning the sword qi into a core, breaking the core, forming a nascent soul, and transforming the nascent soul into divinity. At this point, a qi training that specialized in sword qi had been deduced from the qi training stage to the divinity transformation stage. I didn't find any problems until I reached the divinity transformation stage. It seems that there is nothing wrong with my understanding of the qi training stage. Liu nodded and through the newly deduced Chang'e sword technique to the true spirit of creation. It's just that, at the end of this sword technique, how can the sword qi turn into divine qi? I've never seen an immortal level sword qi. No, I've already seen it. Liu suddenly thought of the sword light that destroyed everything in the void turbulence of the main world. What is the essence of the sword light in the void turbulence? Destruction? Extinction? It's just a concept, not a concrete thing like qi of heaven and earth. Is there really a kind of qi of destruction? Liu rubbed between his eyebrows and felt a headache coming on. He still didn't understand the essence of divine qi. It seemed that he had to continue to collect various cultivation methods to verify whether the essence of qi training stage was to cultivate divine qi. Leaving the problem of the Chang'e sword technique aside, Liu focused on the miscellaneous cultivation methods. Regardless of whether it was alchemy, artifact forging, or talismans, it was not only the use of power, it was also an aid to cultivation. This was especially true when it came to concocting pills. Since consuming pills could increase one's cultivation level, one could even consume pills all the way until one ascended to immortality. That meant that the spiritual qi in the pill was of great help to one's cultivation. The spiritual qi in the pills was compatible with the great Tao of immortal ascension. Then let's study the alchemy methods of this world. Thus, Liu immersed himself in the study of alchemy. Little South Mountain Market. After Li Feiyu settled the bill with the landlord, he checked out of the rented room and left Xiaonan Mountain Market. Hee, kid, someone's really following us. After passing through the fog shrouding the hill, Li Feiyu kept moving forward, burying his head in his journey. Before he left Little South Mountain, he heard the voice of the true spirit of creation. There's really someone who isn't afraid of death. Li Feiyu touched the hilt of the sword at his waist and sneered. He pretended that he didn't feel anything and continued on his journey. Li Feiyu, who had been prepared, completely concealed his strength. He didn't even use the sword flight. He just hurried on with his feet, pretending that his cultivation level was not high enough and that he couldn't use the sword flight. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Figures flying on the sword flight broke through the air. 4 masked figures in black descended from the sky and surrounded Li Feiyu. Kid, hand over all your spiritual stones, pills, celestial artifacts, and talismans. Among the 4 men in black, a guy who seemed to be the leader stood out and pointed at Li Feiyu. He shouted at Li Feiyu in a strange, dry, and hoarse voice. Hand them over, and I'll spare your life. Otherwise, you're dead. Hand them over. You're proficient in alchemy, artifact forging, and talisman making. You have a bright future. Don't lose your life for material things. The other black-clothed men also chimed in. Since you know that I have a bright future, you still chased after me. Haha, you don't think that you'll spare my life, do you? Li Feiyu stretched out his hand and pressed the hilt of his sword. He grinned at the 4 men. Well, I don't want to spare your lives either. Kid, you're courting death. You're just at the 2nd level of qi cultivation realm. How dare you boast so shamelessly? This is sword qi. In the horrified eyes of the 4 men in black, Li Feiyu unsheathed his sword with a clang. Clang. A shrill sword sound rose to the sky. West Pole Chang'e, white rainbow piercing the sun. A platinum sword light, like a white rainbow piercing the sun, cut through the sky. The extremely sharp sword qi burst out violently, like a bright moon rising in the dark night sky. The sword light whizzed out like a winding dragon. With just a turn, the sword light flashed and disappeared. Bang! 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 The 4 men in black staggered and fell to the ground. Their heads were separated from their bodies. They fell to the ground and died. Umph! You're too weak. Li Feiyu snorted coldly, sheathed his sword, and stood with it. Whoosh! 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 At this time, another 5 figures rushed out of the fog of Little Nanshan. They're dead. These people are all at the 7th level of Qi cultivation realm and above. The 4 of them were all killed by Li Feiyu. How is this possible? Isn't Li Feiyu only at the 2nd level of Qi cultivation realm? How could it be? Looking at the scene, the 5 people who came later suddenly felt a chill in their hearts. They were all experienced. Seeing this situation, the 5 people immediately thought that Li Feiyu must have pretended to be weak and tricked these people ruthlessly. You guys, are you also here to rob me? Li Feiyu looked at these cultivators with a cold face. His face was expressionless, but there was a trace of coldness in his eyes. No. Fellow cultivator Li, what are you talking about? How could we do such a thing? Yes, we're just passing by. Yes, we're just passing by. The first few people were dead on the spot. The 5 people who came later wanted to get a share of the loot, but they did not have the guts to test how much strength Li Feiyu had hidden. Passing by? Li Feiyu laughed and nodded. Just passing by. Yes, we're just passing by. Seeing that Li Feiyu did not intend to turn hostile, the 5 people were relieved and hurriedly responded with a smile. Well, since you've been here and are just passing by, don't miss it. Li Feiyu sneered and waved his hand. A sword light whizzed out. Then I'll send you to hell together. A platinum-colored sword light shot up and swept across the sky. A platinum-colored streak of light flashed past the cultivators like a swimming dragon. Bang! 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 The 5 figures did not even have time to scream before their chests were pierced by Li Feiyu's flying sword and died. Humph! Li Feiyu snorted and waved his hand. An invisible wave swept across and kept the 2 groups of corpses into the furnace of creation. Kid, big harvest. Elixir pills, talismans, dermic weapons, spirit stones, a lot of them. The true spirit of creation smiled and showed dermic weapons, talismans, spirit stones, and bottles of elixir pills to Li Feiyu. More profitable than my business? And they came so quickly? Li Feiyu laughed and touched the sword hilt at his waist. Indeed, killing and robbing is the most cost-effective. Of course, a man can't be rich without a windfall. The true spirit of creation nodded in agreement. So, a good young man went on the path of killing and robbing and leveling up. Chapter 307. A month passed, and the master of the Star Palace sent over the first batch of loot. This time, there was even more information collected. There were cultivation methods, secret techniques, miscellaneous skills, and even some ancient scrolls of unknown origin. These 2 are quite capable. It seems that my scheming was not in vain. Liu nodded in satisfaction. He saved a copy of the information in the system, then transferred a copy to his mind. He began to interpret the cultivation information. His powerful soul energy constantly interpreted the information, summarizing it one by one. After 2 hours, Liu raised his head with a frown. Some of the cultivation methods of Qi cultivation are similar to my idea. But Liu waved his hand and took out a few jade scrolls and a few ancient scrolls. He knocked on the table and frowned. But beasts can also become immortals? Refining corpses can also become immortals? Refining puppets can also become immortals? Isn't this nonsense? The cultivation methods that he took out were all cultivation methods that did not match Liu's ideas. In Liu's opinion, the path of Qi cultivation was to cultivate immortal Qi. The body and Qi were one, and the spirit and Qi were one. The entire person would turn into a source of heaven and earth similar to the black and yellow Qi, and thus live forever. But what the hell was this beast taming? What was this about refining corpses to become immortals? Even puppets could become immortals? This immortal was too cheap, wasn't it? Especially this scroll. Liu reached out and picked up a tattered animal skin scroll. This is not a cultivation method, but a record of the sect. This actually records an immortal who refined puppets to become immortals. Refining an immortal-level puppet, then controlling this puppet himself to withstand the heavenly tribulation. Passing the tribulation of ascension and becoming immortal in one go. That works? Seeing this record, Liu was dumbfounded. This shouldn't be called becoming immortal, right? This can only be called entering the immortal world, right? Of course, in the eyes of the people of the lower realm, being able to enter the immortal world is becoming immortal. But this is definitely not immortal. The more he understood, the more confused Liu became. This information, especially the information about refining a puppet to become an immortal, made Liu realize a big problem. This method was completely aimed at ascending to the immortal world. Most of the methods were used to help him successfully pass through the ascension tribulation so that he could enter the upper realm. This is completely out of line with the essence of cultivation. Wasn't immortal cultivation the sublimation of one's life essence? To cultivate with the goal of transcending the tribulation as the goal, isn't this an opportunistic method? This situation gave Liu an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Studying with exams as the goal. Has the poison of exam-oriented education already spread to the immortal cultivation world? I still have to study the path of cultivation in this world. I don't dare to casually practice my great beginning profound chi scripture. There was no medicine for regret in cultivation. One wrong step could lead to a lifetime of mistakes. This was no joke. Fortunately, we still have Li Feiyu as a guinea pig. If that's the case, I'll use my method of cultivating immortal chi to become a celestial on him. Liu smiled and nodded. He raised his head to look in the direction of the scattered star seas, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. I can also test the Master of Star Palace's divine essence-fused light, but I can't bear to give them the great beginning profound chi scripture, so I'll just simplify it. Cultivate the innate 5 elements chi, innate 5 colors divine light. Liu chuckled. This method really did have some connections with a certain old peacock. Now that his train of thought was clear, all that was left was to spend time to verify it. Under the influence of Liu, the mastermind behind the scenes, great changes would occur in the human world, and many people's fates would be very different. Senior creation, are we really going there? After leaving Little South Mountain, Li Feiyu was persuaded by the creation true spirit to rush to Jian province in the Yu Kingdom. Of course, you already have a heavenly spiritual root, but if you want to build your foundation, you still need a foundation-building pill. The creation true spirit chuckled. In the forbidden area in the northern part of Jian province, there are materials to refine the foundation-building pill. This is the trial ground of the 7 sect of the Yu Kingdom, and it only opens once every 5 years. Now is the time for them to start the trial. Speaking of this, the Grand Supreme Elixir Spirit laughed sinisterly. Boy, what's the point of robbing a rogue cultivator? Only the cultivators of the sect are rich. You can sneak in and kill them. You can seize the treasure and harvest the herbs, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Why not? That's true. Li Feiyu touched the hilt of his sword, and a smile appeared on his cold face. But senior creation, you should have a way to hide your identity, right? You can't expose yourself, or I'll be hunted to death by the 7th sect. Don't worry. I have plenty of ways. Don't worry. The creation true spirit waved his hand indifferently. Then there's no problem. Li Feiyu smiled, and a sword light whizzed up and rushed to the northern part of Jian province. After leaving Little Nanshan and killing 9 rogue cultivators, Li Feiyu gained a lot. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he let the creation true spirit consume spirit stones to refine the 5 elements metal chi into his body. In the past few days, Li Feiyu's cultivation had advanced to the 10th level of chi cultivation. Although there was still a gap between him and the 13th level of chi cultivation, Li Feiyu's combat power was very strong. After approaching the northern part of Jian province, Li Feiyu pressed the escape light and landed on the ground. Under the guidance of the creation true spirit, he rushed all the way to the forbidden area of the seven sects of the Yu Kingdom. Not long after, Li Feiyu sneaked all the way and arrived near the forbidden area of the seven sects. At this time, the sect's cultivators had already appeared outside the forbidden area. Rumble! One by one, huge flying artifacts broke through the air. Some were shaped like ships, some like dragons, and some like huge leaves. There were all kinds of them. In a moment, the large flying artifacts of the seventh sect landed on the edge of the forbidden area. Li, it's time for the seven sect trials that are held once every 5 years. Long time no see. The leading elders of the various sects leaders greeted each other and led their disciples out of the flying artifacts. After these sects elders appeared, the vast dharmic power fluctuations caused the surrounding heaven and earth essence chi to faintly tremble. They're actually so strong? What kind of cultivation is this? The tyrannical dharmic power fluctuations of these elders made Li Feiyu's expression change and his heart tighten. They're just a few Jin Dan cultivators. The creation true spirit curled his lips in disdain. They're only at the early stage of Jin Dan. With their talent, this is the end of their lives. Jin Dan cultivators. Li Feiyu took a deep breath. He now understood a lot of common knowledge of the cultivation world and had some understanding of the concept of the Jin Dan realm. With his current strength, these people could casually crush him to death with a finger. Kid, over there are people from the Giant Sword sect. Just as Li Feiyu was lamenting, the creation true spirit reminded him in his mind. Giant Sword sect? Li Feiyu immediately understood that the creation true spirit wanted him to pretend to be a Giant Sword sect cultivator. But how do I sneak in? I can't just walk in like this, right? I have my ways. Just wait and see. Since the creation true spirit said this, Li Feiyu could only wait in peace. Chapter 308. Is it time? At this time, the Giant Sword sect's elder Jin Dan looked up at the sky and estimated a bit. He reached out his left hand and grabbed the ground. Yellow light flashed, and the ground shook slightly. A stream of mud wriggled up like an earth dragon. This person's wrist shook, and the mud condensed into a giant sword made of yellow mud in his hand. Mud to stone, gather the mud to form a sword. This person shouted, and with a stroke of his finger, a white light flashed, and the mud sword turned into a gray giant stone sword. This spell, when Li Feiyu saw this, he couldn't help but ask the creation true spirit, senior creation, didn't you say that the Giant Sword sect cultivates sword chi? This spell doesn't look like sword chi, right? The Giant Sword sect's elder Jin Dan used the mud to stone spell. The disciples of the seven sects were all shocked and amazed. However, Li Feiyu frowned. The Giant Sword sect's half-baked sword cultivation method has impure sword chi and doesn't have much power. They can only use the 5-element spell to make up the numbers. The creation true spirit disdainfully curled his lips. The sword cultivator's path is to break all spells with one sword. No matter how many spells you have, I will break them with one sword. This is the right path. Saying this, the creation true spirit looked at Li Feiyu and smiled. Kid, practice well. This old man will take you to become an immortal and let the world see what a true sword immortal looks like. Thank you, senior, for your teachings. Li Feiyu respectfully thanked him and felt very emotional. To be able to meet the creation true spirit, it was really a blessing of several lifetimes. At this time, the Giant Sword sect's elder Jin Dan, who created the stone sword, made a move again. Go! With a loud shout, a yellow light flashed, and the stone sword flew out of his hand. It was as fast as a meteor as it shot into the sky. Boom! There was a violent explosion. The stone sword seemed to have touched something and suddenly exploded into dust. Shio, shio, shio. A sharp sound broke through the air, and endless green light exploded in the sky, covering the sky and earth. The wind howled. The green light turned into countless wind blades, whistling madly. The entire space became densely packed wind blades, and there was only an endless howling wind between heaven and earth. What is this? Li Feiyu trembled in fear because the wall of wind blades was less than 30 meters away from him. Those dense and incomparably sharp wind blades kept rolling and slicing, causing his scalp to go numb. If he had been any closer, he would have been sliced into 1,000 pieces, right? It's just a restriction. The true spirit of creation waved his hand carelessly. A place like this should be a garden where a cultivator planted his herbs many years ago. Naturally, there would be seals and restrictive spells. Senior creation, this restriction is so fierce. How are we going to get in? When Li Feiyu saw the wall of wind blades rolling around him, he felt his hair stand on end. Do you think this bit of restriction can stump me? If it weren't for the fact that passing through the forbidden area would cause a commotion, I would have let you in long ago. When they open the restriction, we'll take the opportunity to go in. The true spirit of creation had already scanned the restriction's information. With the various cultivation techniques that Liu had passed on, it was very easy for the true spirit of creation to break this restriction. The restriction's power is already very weak. It's time to open it. The giant sword sect's elder Jean Dan turned his head and said to the Jean Dan elders of the other sections. Then he waved his hand and took out a huge sword that was flickering with silver light. Do it! The giant sword sect's elder shouted, and the huge sword in his hand burst out with brilliant silver light. At the same time, the elders of the other 6 sects, Jean Dan elders, hurriedly jumped out. One by one, their magic treasures burst out with brilliant spiritual light. Attack! With a loud shout, 7 magic treasures rushed up and fiercely smashed towards the wind blade restriction. Boom! A violent explosion rang out, and the huge roar shook the eardrums of the nearby 7 sects disciples. TSK, TSK, you only know how to act recklessly. The true spirit of creation curled his lips and turned his head to say to Li Feiyu, Brat, get ready. We're going in. With that, the true spirit of creation waved his hand, and an invisible wave swept out, opening a secret hole in the wind blade wall. Go! Li Feiyu hurriedly jumped up and rushed into the hole. The hole disappeared instantly, as if nothing had happened. In front of him was a vast valley. The green forest and the gurgling water seemed to be peaceful and auspicious. The chi of heaven and earth is much more abundant than outside. Li Feiyu took a deep breath and felt that the chi of heaven and earth was more active than outside. Hum, hum. At this time, a hum sound suddenly came from the forest. It seemed to be the sound of a wild boar. Crash! Li Feiyu had just turned his head when he suddenly heard the bushes in the forest falling down. A demonic beast that looked like a wild boar and was about 100 feet long, covered in a thick layer of stone armor, rushed out. The demonic beast raised its 2-feet-long tusks and charged towards Li Feiyu fiercely. The rumbling sound of hooves shook the ground. You're courting death. Li Feiyu drew his sword, and a brilliant sword radiance rushed out like a flash of starlight. Puff! The sword radiance broke through the demonic beast's head, and it fell to the ground with a thud. A rank 1 demonic beast, stone dolphin, is equivalent to the strength of a chi cultivation stage cultivator. The true spirit of creation explained in Li Feiyu's mind. The chi of heaven and earth in the forbidden area is rich. It's normal for demonic beasts to be born. Li Feiyu nodded. With a wave of his hand, he kept the stone dolphin into the furnace of creation. According to the true spirit of creation, the space in the furnace of creation was so vast that it could be used as a storage equipment. Li Feiyu naturally used it without hesitation. Did someone come in? Li Feiyu was just about to walk out of the valley when he suddenly saw a flash of light at the entrance of the valley. A burly man in a yellow robe with a fierce face appeared. The restriction here has the function of disorderly teleportation. Those Jean Dan cultivators were reckless. The sect disciples who opened the restriction and came in were disorderly teleported to various places in the forbidden area. The true spirit of creation immediately explained, and then reminded, Kid, This person's cultivation is at the 13th level of Qi cultivation stage. Don't underestimate him. Who are you? After the burly man in yellow was teleported, he suddenly saw Li Feiyu in the valley and was stunned. He's holding a sword. Is he from the giant sword sect? He's only at the 10th level of Qi cultivation stage. He dares to participate in the trial of blood with such strength? The burly man in yellow sneered. With a wave of his hand, a talisman appeared in his hand. Kid, go to hell. Circulating his dermic powers, the burly man in yellow was about to activate the talisman in his hand, but he saw Li Feiyu sneered and waved his sword. Clang! An incomparably sharp platinum sword radiance soared into the sky. Sword Qi, you're only at the 10th level of Qi cultivation stage. You want to break my protective dermic artifact with this little bit of sword Qi? An earthy yellow stone seal appeared on the burly man in yellow. It transformed into a yellow light and enveloped the burly man in yellow. The incomparably thick defensive barrier filled the burly man in yellow with confidence. He no longer paid attention to Li Feiyu's sword radiance and concentrated on circulating his dermic powers to activate the talisman in his hand. Puff! The sword radiance slashed on the barrier. Under the burly man in yellow's horrified gaze, the barrier disappeared in a flash, and the bright silver sword radiance broke through his head. You dare to take my Chongqing sword Qi head-on? I've never seen someone who wants to die like you. Li Feiyu sneered. With a wave of his hand, he put the burly man in yellow into the furnace of creation. 2 high-grade dermic artifacts. 1 supreme-grade dermic artifact? So many spirit stones, talismans, and pills? Damn it, the cultivators of the sect are indeed rich. Seeing the items that appeared in the furnace of creation, Li Feiyu clicked his tongue in admiration. He thought to himself, robbing cultivators of the sect is indeed better than robbing itinerant cultivators. Chapter 309. Kid, your sword needs to be reforged. Seeing that the yellow-robed man even had a supreme-grade Dharma weapon, the true spirit of creation hurriedly reminded Li Feiyu to upgrade his Chongqing sword. Indeed, although he had killed the yellow-robed man with 1 strike, it was entirely because the yellow-robed man had underestimated him. The yellow-robed man was at the 13th tier of Qi cultivation and had a supreme-grade Dharma weapon. If the yellow-robed man had used all his strength and released his supreme-grade Dharma weapon at the beginning, it would not have been so easy to take him down. The cultivators of the sect are indeed rich. Any random disciple of the sect has a supreme-grade Dharma weapon. I can't be careless. Li Feiyu nodded, took off his Chongqing sword, and threw it into the furnace of creation. Senior, I'll have to trouble you. It's a piece of cake. The true spirit of creation laughed, and his body dispersed into light spots. The furnace of creation flowed with endless scenes of creation. The yellow-robed man's supreme-grade Dharma weapon was a golden ring. Vigorous earth spiritual power flowed around it, and it was a supreme-grade Dharma weapon that was both offensive and defensive. Under the refining of the furnace of creation, the golden ring melted instantly. At the same time, the silver hooks, iron rulers, short spears, and the yellow seal that the yellow-robed man had released were all melted. Under the refinement of the furnace of good fortune, the materials that were suitable were refined, and the materials that were not suitable were used as fuel. Li Feiyu's Chongqing sword was refined again. Clang! The shining silver sword flew out of the furnace and fell into Li Feiyu's hands. This is a supreme-grade Dharma weapon? It's really powerful. Li Feiyu nodded happily when he sensed the extremely sharp aura contained in the Chongqing sword that had been refined again. Kid, the medicinal materials for the Foundation Establishment Elixir are in the center of the forbidden area. Let's kill all the way. The true spirit of creation laughed and pointed to the center of the forbidden area. Yes, kill all the way. Li Feiyu held the sword hilt and strode out of the valley with his head held high. In a huge forest, 2 parties were confronting each other. On one side were 2 women in white, and on the other side were 3 men in dark green robes. 3 senior brothers from the MT Spirit Beast College. Do you have to start a war with us? You must know that our masked moon sect is the head of the 7 sects of the state of you. We sisters have many close friends within the sect. A woman controlled a white silk handkerchief, which transformed into silver threads, blocking in front of her, protecting her entire body. What a joke. Where is this? The bloody trial. Even if you die here, who will know that we killed you? One of the men from the MT Spirit Beast sneered. He waved his hand and released a giant snake that was as black as ink and had a foul stench. Cha! Cha! At this moment, the sound of footsteps breaking grass and withered leaves could be heard in the forest. While the 5 of them were bewildered, a young man with a long sword hanging from his waist walked over step by step with a cold expression on his face. It was as if he had completely ignored the 5 people who were confronting each other. This person was naturally Li Feiyu. Who is this person? The people from MT Spirit Beast frowned slightly when they saw Li Feiyu walking over. When they felt Li Feiyu's spiritual power fluctuations and discovered that he was only a 10th level Qi refinement cultivator, they didn't care anymore. Brat, stop! A cultivator from MT Spirit Beast coldly shouted at Li Feiyu. He waved his hand and released a 3-foot-long black centipede. This, senior brother from the giant sword sect. We sisters are being besieged by them. Please help us. We sisters will definitely repay this kindness. The woman who controlled the white silk handkerchief had a soft voice. Her pretty face carried a bit of misery. When she spoke, the towering hills in front of her chest trembled a few times. She was delicate and pitiful, making people feel pity for her. Yes, please save us, senior brother. The other woman also pitifully begged Li Feiyu for help. In the eyes of these 2 women, even if Li Feiyu's strength was only at the 10th level of Qi refinement, this kind of scapegoat and spendthrift should be pulled in as many as possible. Save you. Li Feiyu stopped, glanced at the 2 women, and smiled. I think you may have made a mistake. Li Feiyu stretched out his hand and pulled out a long sword. With a flick of his finger, a cold and sharp sword Qi whistled through the air. Li Feiyu stretched out a finger and drew a circle at the 5 people in the field. A sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. All of you are my prey. You're courting death. As soon as these words came out, the 5 people who were vaguely hostile suddenly became furious and pointed their spears at Li Feiyu. Black snake, centipede, giant toad, silk handkerchief, machete. 5 spiritual lights rushed up, and the 5 people rushed at Li Feiyu together. West Pole Changgung, white rainbow, piercing the sun. All the spiritual power in his body poured into the Changgung sword. With a clang, the Changgung sword turned into a platinum sword light and rushed into the sky like a white rainbow, whistling through the air. The incomparably sharp sword Qi was unstoppable. Puff, 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 puff. The sword light was like a rainbow and pierced through the chest. The 5 corpses fell to the ground with a plop sound. The master is dead, but the spirit beasts are still attacking according to the previous order. The 3 cultivators of Spirit Beast Mountain were already dead, but the black snake, centipede, and toad were still rushing at Li Feiyu. Li Feiyu frowned and flicked his finger. The sword light was like silk and shot out, killing the 3 spirit beasts. I have to pay attention to this problem in the future. Li Feiyu was a little vigilant. What he did just now was a little too careless. There were all kinds of secret skills in the cultivation world, and he could not be careless. He waved his hand and collected the corpses, magic weapons, and dead spirit beasts of the 5 people. The creation True Spirit refined all these corpses into spiritual Qi. Kid, find a place and absorb the spiritual Qi from these people first, and raise your cultivation to the 13th level of Qi refinement realm. Okay. Li Feiyu's figure flashed and found a cave on the edge of the cliff nearby. He set up a sword light to seal the cave and then sat on the ground, ready to absorb the spiritual Qi from these people. The yellow-robed man was at the 13th level. These 5 people had different cultivation levels. 2 of them were at the 13th level, and 3 of them were at the 12th level. After the creation furnace broke them down, the spiritual chi was refined, converted into the 5-element metal chi, and poured into Li Feiyu's body. As the majestic spiritual chi poured in, Li Feiyu constantly operated his cultivation method and kept absorbing this spiritual chi. A day later, Li Feiyu exhaled and stopped. Is this the 13th level of chi refinement realm? It's really much stronger. Feeling the abundant spiritual chi in his body, Li Feiyu was very happy. It's only been 2 months, and I'm already at the peak of chi refinement realm. It's incredible. With me helping you, this is nothing. If you hadn't been delayed by doing business on Little Nanshan, you would have been at the peak of chi refinement realm. The creation true spirit raised its head proudly. Senior creation, I'm very grateful for your kindness. Li Feiyu solemnly thanked it and then walked out of the cave. Looking up at the center of the forbidden area, Li Feiyu touched the hilt of his sword and chuckled. Senior, if I kill everyone, what do you think the people of the 7 major sect will look like? That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.